Elysium. Wir betreten feuertrunken himmlische dein Heiligtum. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. Will die große Hof gelungen, eines Freundes Freund zu sein, wer ein volles Heil errungen, biete seinen Lohn an. Wer auf nur eine Seele seine auf den Wegen Lust, wo fällst die Geburt, die Stille meinen sich aus diesem Buch. betreten Feuertrunken, himmlische dein Heiligtum. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. Deine Zauber binden wieder, was die Mode streng geteilt. Alle Menschen werden Brüder, wo dein sanfter Flügel weilt. In die große Hof gelungen, eines Freundes Freund zu sein, wer ein volles Heil errungen, bietet seinen Lohn an. Wer auf heile Seele seine auf den Wegen Brust, hochfestige und die Stille meinen sich aus diesem Buch.
Welcome back, sock puppets, sociopaths, TLD enthusiasts, to season 4 of Australia's most watched politics live stream. Although probably it's least well produced, the stream of consciousness. I'm sorry that tonight my microphone probably sounds a bit different. We had some technical issues, so I've patched something together tonight so that you can still hear me. And we got a heap to catch up on from my 2 week hiatus. We've got John Ruddock, the leader of the Libertarian Party in New South Wales, joining us tonight to talk about ICAC, the next phase of TLD, I guess, the total flogging a dead horse that New South Wales's Integrity Commission is indulging in. But before we get into that, we got to talk about the biggest news the last 24 hours, which is The Noticer, Australia's premier right-wing news outlet, possibly by any measure. Like if you were to ask any academic to rank everyone in the media from left to right, probably the only actual right-wing news outlet, has been kicked off Twitter sometime late yesterday. We now know why, the actual reason. They're citing the fact that they're citing their hateful profile policy. So the problem was the name. And interestingly, Meta products, so Instagram, Facebook, it's still up on, which is very unusual. I mean, if you had have asked like 3 or 4 years ago, when Musk first bought the platform and changed its name, which of those three would leave that site on? No one would have said this, but this is where we are now. The Noticer posted something on Telegram, which I think a few of you have posted. The guys of the Noticer, I mean, they're suggesting the possibility it arises from their negative mention by one of the witnesses at the anti-Semitism inquiry, and citing the I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that Greenblatt from the ADL is in town. He's in Sydney at the moment. Because, of course, the only people who say that the term noticing is hate speech are, of course, the ADL. So it does make perfect sense. I hate to admit it, but I think some of you with spicier views than mine might actually be right in this case. Probably was then. Now, look, put the politics of that aside. The issue here is Musk's moderation policies. And just one second, I got to turn my heater off. The issue is the moderation policy, right? The issue is, Musk talks a big game about this being the free speech site. But is it really? I mean, we all have to kind of say it, but there's heaps of these examples. And, like, if you follow some of the older guard of the online right, I mean, they frequently cite this. Like, I don't think a single day goes by that Bronze Age Mindset Bronze Age Pervert doesn't post something about how many good accounts get locked out. I actually spoke to someone early this morning who I know works in that kind of milieu. And he said that one of the big issues is when Musk bought X, he actually just fired his entire moderation development team. And because, like, these guys don't want to have rooms full of people sitting there moderating things. The end game for every social media outlet has been automation. Now, Meta are finally there. And Meta are also at the point where they have enough confidence in their moderation system that when their system says don't kick something off and they get a complaint from a third party, that they actually err on the side of their own system. They review it and they go, well, we trust our billion-dollar AI more than we trust, a bunch of nerds writing letters. But that system doesn't exist for X in much of a meaningful way. Like, they say it does. Like, they say Grok's doing it or whatever, but I mean, I think the kind of lived experience of people on the right is that's not the case, and that's what's happened here. Look, I'm hopeful that all the online pressure, I mean, this has been a trending topic on X in Australia for like the last 24 hours now. I think this happened 24 hours ago. So far, there's been no word from the supposed champions of right wing free speech in our country, the One Nation Party. And guys, I wouldn't hold your breath just quietly, but we'll see. Uh, Look, my advice to the guys of the Noticer, whoever you are, uh, is this. The work they do is more important than a name, right? Far more important than the name. So if it takes a new handle, if it takes, maybe even a full rebrand, like the content is what matters, not what it's called. And I think there's enough, there's enough support out there. They have enough followers across all their social media channels that they could definitely do that. So that's something. Look, I think the guys should consider, and longer term. I mean, maybe taking the notice, not mainstream, but you know, I really think, if not for the name, that it could just be a normal Australian media business and an enormously successful one. Had a fascinating conversation with some guys in the investment community the other day because I was bitching and moaning about Channel 9 News, or Channel 9, the business. And they were saying like how much buyer's remorse is out there from Nine shareholders because they bought the stock at a time when like it just looked so good on paper. It's like three really successful mastheads, news, sport, entertainment. I mean, Stan actually does really well. I don't know who watches it, but and they thought, well, back 5, 6 years ago, 6, 7 years ago, that they thought it was doing really well, right? But of course, now the media landscape has changed, and the growth and the energy is in conservative content, and so there's been a lot of pushback, apparently, internally on Nine, who own the Sydney Morning Herald, who own the Age, and we're going to be talking a lot about the Sydney Morning Herald tonight, on why Nine doesn't launch its own kind of more conservative content vertical. Of course, Karl Stefanovic beat them to the punch. I mean, it's clear that this stuff has been percolating around the media for a long time, where people were thinking, shit, it's like a race to be first, basically. Like, who's going to be first from the mainstream Australian media to do something reasonably conservative? I mean, I think Kerry Stokes thought he was going to do it with the Nightly. I mean, the Nightly has some good stuff. They hired Andrew Green. They do really good defence reporting, but that's about it. Well, they don't really do anything else on our side of the ledger. So yeah, I mean, the Noticer already with that audience could fill in that space, but it's not gonna be able to do it with a name. So maybe that's what has to change, right? And like I would be very clear on this. Not a single other thing about the Noticer actually has to change, right? The content is spectacular. The way they report, especially crime, is because it's honest. They just say the actual facts that are there. That are oftentimes these are facts that are contained in the media packages given out by police, but the mainstream press chooses to omit parts of. So, I think this could be an opportunity for them to take it to the next level, and I hope the guys, wherever they may be, think about it. On to the next big thing that's going on contemporaneously right now. And we're going to get to, I think later in the show, we're going to do a survey of the sock puppets, see what it is I missed over the last 2 weeks you want me to talk about. But the thing that's got me the most agitated right now is absolutely this ICAC investigation in New South Wales. And I know it seems like a kind of dumb regional problem, in a region I don't even live in anymore, by the way. And I know it seems like, why do we care about these people again? These so-called conservatives and the liberals who abandoned us. But I mean, before I get into the nuts and bolts of it, first thing everyone on the right in this country has to understand is what is happening right now to the legacy Catholic conservatives of the Liberal Party in New South Wales is going to happen to One Nation. Probably before 2028. In fact, I'll make a prediction on the show right now. Someone clip it. I predict that the first public hearing, the first name and shaming, the first circus, the first fucking live performance of the National Anti-Corruption Commission will be into One Nation and their financial arrangements and their various interactions with business. And I believe, and I predict, it will happen before the next election. And if it doesn't happen before, you bet your bottom dollar it's going to happen in the first year. Just like they did to Trump, right? It's going to happen because this is the only playbook the progressive establishment has. And so what we're seeing right now in New South Wales is a trial run. It's a test. And I have never seen anything like it before because these guys aren't even pretending anymore. Like, it used to be that if you wanted to do something like this at that kind of level, like, you'd at least put someone in the chair who would look apolitical, right? Not here. No. They brought in Fabian Gleeson, a former Labor councillor, as John Ruddock, who's going to come on in about 20 minutes, pointed out in a tweet the other day. I mean, no one names their kid Fabian if they weren't deeply embedded in the kind of, general environment of socialism and Labor politics and social democracy. And his background suggests that 100%. I mean, this is a guy from the deepest level of the Australian progressive political establishment, despite the fact he was a judge. Look at the form on the council assistant. Look at the kind of stuff she's done, right? And they're not even trying to hide it. I mean, look, I sparred with Jeffrey Watson. I mean, in the dock, But at the end of the day, Jeffrey Watson, in all his conduct, as much as he's an annoying prick, and I think even his best friends would admit that Jeffrey Watson's an annoying prick, that's at least his ideology. It's not. He doesn't have a political ideology. He's got some highfalutin ideas about, how public officials should conduct themselves. But, no one would ever, and I mean, I was adjacent to those investigations for years, and everyone hated Jeffrey Watson. We never once said he was doing Labor's bidding because we knew he was. To go into an investigation like this one, which is so paper thin, right, and to have these people running it, you really do have to ask yourself, what the hell is going on? I say this on behalf of a lot of my friends and former travellers in New South Wales because, God, you can't say it publicly. You'll be done with contempt. I'm not in their jurisdiction, as half of their witnesses aren't. So I feel reasonably confident in making this case. And John Ruddock, when he comes on tonight, I mean, he's got parliamentary privilege. So between us, we can really just, air this out in a way that a lot of others can't. Look, I've said it online, and I 100% believe it, and it's something I've believed for a decade, that there has been a concerted push from the left-wing media and legal establishment in New South Wales to target Catholic conservatives. And, Operation Spicer and Credo in 2014 was one expression of it. Their targeting of Cardinal Pell was another expression of it. And now we've got... an attempt to smear the Catholic Church by saying somehow it's inappropriate for Catholic Schools New South Wales to pay consultants who happen to be conservative and to advocate for conservative causes, which I would think every Catholic should support. Unless your name's Fabian Gleeson, I guess. I guess the kind of the Fenian fringe of Catholicism maybe doesn't support him so much. But that's where we are. I mean, look, it's kind of personal for me. I would say in my career that 2014 ICAC investigation and the consequences of it, and the consequences for the Liberal Party at large. I mean, if you want to write the story of TLD, the origin story of TLD is in 2014, well, maybe even earlier when they got to Chris Hartcher, when that investigation first began. And they came for 11 into 10, because I think Bart Bassett was actually a moderate. But they came for 10 conservatives aligned with the Catholic right in New South Wales They made allegations which, I mean, I think maybe so far, like one guy has even been referred by the DPP. One out of all of them. Many, in fact, have been actually exonerated, including my former employer, my former boss, one of the greatest politicians I ever knew, Mike Gallagher, who was accused of taking illegal or facilitating illegal donations from a mining magnate and also property developer and thus prohibited donor by the name of Nathan Tinkler. Remember him? He was like one of those minor regional billionaires that were kind of like big a few years ago. I think he owned the Newcastle Knights or something. Anyway, that was the allegation. That was bullshit. It relied on a series of text messages where the ICAC alleged that every time Mike Gallagher called someone big man, that he was talking about Nathan Tinkler, who, if you look him up, he was a very big man. But that's what Mike called everyone, because Mike was 5'1", maybe 5'4". If Mike's watching, like, I'm probably getting that wrong. He was a little guy, and it was just like this running joke. Mike called everyone big man. I was a big man. You know, he used to call Barry O'Farrell big man. You going through those text messages, you would never have been able to tell which big man he was referring to. And in the end, the donations never arrived. And in the end, when we got into government, what Nathan Tinkler wanted, a fourth coal loader, came across Mike Gallagher's desk, and he said no. And yet, regardless, he was found by ICAC to be corrupt, and then he fought for a decade to clear his name, which he eventually did. Today, he's the CEO of Australia Ports. He has a fantastic job. He's widely respected. He's a popular speaker at events. And no one who matters in this country gives a fuck about what happened at ICAC. Right? And that's the same for many of them. You know, another guy I worked for in that investigation, a guy called Craig Bowman, he was accused of taking developer donations from himself because he was a developer. And because developer donations were banned, the ICAC decided he couldn't donate his own money to his own campaign. And so he got done, right? Craig's moved on. He's got an amazing... He was older when he got in. He's got an amazing family. He would eventually be cleared as well. Every single one of those guys got off. Except for the saddest one of those guys who didn't get off, or he never really tried. He couldn't really try because it was such a small thing. A guy called Gary Edwards, who, when you look online, when you Google John McGowan and you see those pictures of me looking fun and skinny walking out of ICAC, that's what I was doing in there that day. They were forcing me to give evidence against Gary about $3,000 worth of raffle tickets that he sold to a property developer. Not cash. Well, he got the cash, but they were raffle tickets. $3,000 ended that man's career, and that of another of his staffers as well. But this is the kind of stuff they do, and yet they only seem to do it to conservatives. Right? They've tried to do it, I mean, a couple of times to Labor since, but I mean, the Labor guys are way smarter, because the thing that we've all learned about the ICAC's investigations is corrupt guys are really smart. All the Liberal Party ever was stupid. And the worst thing the Liberal Party ever was, and it's the reason why today they're doomed, is they were naive. You know, on the day that Jeffrey Watson stood in ICAC and told the country that he was accusing Mike Gallagher of taking those donations, Mike Gallagher was at an event, he was down in Goulburn, and he raced back up to Sydney. He didn't come into Parliament that day, he went straight to his lawyer's office to get briefed. And I ran down there. I got the call from Baird's chief of staff saying he wanted us to resign. Wanted him to resign. And I said, fuck you. So he's not fucking resigning. It's all bullshit. We're going to fight it. I went down there and told him, and I said, my advice is don't resign. Tell these guys to get fucked. Parliament was sitting the next week. He could have walked into the chamber with parliamentary privilege. He could have just given all his evidence in there. I wanted to lock ourselves in the office so we couldn't be subpoenaed. That was my plan. And Mike just sat there and looked me in the eye with this absolute faith that the justice system, that the investigators, that the lawyers, everyone was going to do the right thing, and that he was going to go through the process and he was going to get exonerated. He just had this unshakable faith in it. And every single one of those men did. Every one. They just thought, well, the Liberals invented the ICAC. We wouldn't have invented something that could ever be used against us, would we? I mean, no one thought to check with Nick Greiner at first. And as much as I love those guys, like, it was this naivety, you know. It was this absolute naivety. And you're seeing it again now. I mean, Damien Shooter-Hope did really well on the stand today. I mean, I think in more than a decade of me paying attention to ICAC, Damien Shooter-Hope's probably the best witness I've ever seen, right? And he said what I've been saying online all week, and last week too, which is these are not political donations these men are being accused of taking. How can it be a political donation when it's not going to the party? Right? How can it be a political donation when it's not for the benefit of the party? A fact that we can prove because the party didn't even want these people in it. There are text messages already where they've said they were being clandestine because they knew that if the party figured out what they were doing, that they were stacking in conservatives, the party would kick them out. Right? They went to great lengths to not do that. So how then can they allege that the $90-odd in fees constituted a benefit, and it's not even clear that they even paid for the memberships? The only thing that's clear is that they held parties, they put on barbecues, they hosted speaking events on policies, on abortion, on euthanasia, on the culture war shit, on transsexuals in schools and whatever. Like, that's what they were doing. Right? And they took money from a guy, a publican, and a property developer to do it. And they seriously expect us to believe that this has any chance of ever going to the Supreme Court and a judge looking at that and saying that constitutes a political donation. If it constituted a political donation, the New South Wales Electoral Commission would have already written to the Liberal Party and given them the fine. I think it's a $44,000 fine for the party. It's $22,000 for the individuals. And they then have to pay back the whole amount to the Electoral Commission. That didn't happen. You're telling me the guys that hated these guys, like David Elliott, Ray Williams, you're telling me they never went to the Electoral Commission? Of course they did. Everyone in New South Wales right-wing politics knows these guys have been at each other's throats now for what, like almost 7 years. So you can't tell me that they haven't looked at it and they didn't do anything with it. And now the ICAC's doing something with it. But why? Well, that's the question we're going to talk to John Ruddock about tonight. I just saw from Big Liberty, he just put in the chat that the next March for Australia has been announced. That's big news. Let's talk about it. Where's the actual post? I can't see it. Where is it? Yep, here it is. Oh, 6 hours ago. Remigration now. Oh, there's not one in Hobart. No, this one will be gone. But I don't know. I think Brian and I have ventilated this on here before. The marches were great. The marches were what, sparked off this entire movement in our country, and it got people energized, and it lit the fire that is now raging through Australian conservative politics. August was great. I even liked Australia Day. And then everything that's happened since has been a bit, how's your father? But I don't know. I mean, it's like we always said, the march is done, right? And, and like back to my initial point about ICAC and what's going to be happening in our country over the next couple of years, I think guys have to realize that a lot of what's going to be required over the next 2 years is guerrilla warfare. Marches like, jumping over the trench and just running at the guns. That's not going to work, right? Look at the guys from the White Australia Party just putting their faith in the High Court and fucking, who have they got? They got Peter King. Peter King in the High Court. That's your plan? You think that's going to work? No, there are way more left-wing judges in this country than even just moderate judges, right? No. Now is the time for, for the dark, for sneaking around in the dark to get what we want. You're not going to get anything by coming through the front door. We should embrace this opportunity that One Nation has presented us. Because One Nation are now going to be the focus, the locus of all attention from the progressive establishment in our country, bringing them low and embarrassing them and reducing their private primary vote is going to occupy every spare second of these people for the next 2 years, which means all of us on the fringes can sneak around to the flanks. And the flanks are not marching through the middle of fucking Melbourne and having some Antifa trot throw a bottle of Jenkum at your head, which is probably going to happen. You know, that's what the future's going to look like for us, I think. So, yeah, I would avoid the marches, personally. What else we got in the chat, guys? We had a big chat tonight, I noticed. A lot of guys in there. Hey, if anyone has John Ruddock on... if he follows you, just maybe just DM him and tell him that I sent him a link, because for some reason my phone is not allowing you to send it to him. Damn, just I'll try that. Brian says he might come on tonight. We haven't seen Brian in a while. I'm looking forward to that. What else happened in the last 2 weeks? If anyone wants to remind me, I've already forgotten. There's a lot of comments about my hair in the chat. We've got some comments on Misha's fantastic article that was on his Substack the other day. That's been being reported in news.com at the moment. That's spectacular. Got a lot of TLDs in the chat. You guys were like super excited to be here. Great. Someone's asking Skull where the dirt is. Yeah, we need more Skull dirt. South Lakestown says, John, you white dog, has anyone in your bloodline ever committed a war crime? Actually, weirdly, yes. Well, no, they didn't commit one, but they've been accused of one. My great-grandmother, during the Second World War, was arrested. And I can't remember if it was the Italians or the Nazis, but she was arrested and accused of chopping a collaborator's head off. She got off, which obviously didn't do it. But I guess, yeah, there was somebody in my bloodline who committed a war crime. And then we're back to the beginning. If you guys had problems with the music this time, we must have some new viewers. We have just had John Ruddock, MLC, join us, but I think he's tinkering around with his camera. Buyback Capital, who's one of X's top posters, is saying stream of decapitations. Yeah, we might do like a deep dive into John's family tree at some point, because there's some real weird shit in there. Flynn, this was a crazy one. Gina Reinhardt getting, I don't know if spit roasted is the right term, but yeah, that video thing they did, that was crazy. I couldn't believe they did that. And of course, nothing's happened. Like, they're not going to do anything about it. Which again goes to my point. This is what we're in for the next 2 years. It's one rule for us, one rule for them, right? I'm surprised one of you guys, and this is the thing about the right is, people are, we're kind of polite and normal and, well, I'm not obviously normal, but by and large, like, no one on the right is making videos about doing hateful shit to left-wing personalities, right? Imagine if you made that video about, I'm just trying to figure out, imagine if you made that video about Simon Holmes-A-Court. What would happen? Right? It's never going to happen. You wouldn't even make it. It wouldn't even make it to YouTube, let alone to air. John came in and went out. I think he's got some camera issues. So hopefully he jumps back in. Skull pointed out One Nation Vic candidates. Look, as you probably guessed from my last 2 weeks of sabbatical, I haven't been paying much attention to things lately. I did pay attention to the announcement in a passive way, but I certainly haven't looked into them yet. Because that's what I'm excited to do. I want to figure out what this new vetting service that One Nation's got. So I want to kind of do the Pepsi challenge and compare it to my vetting service that I know people pay a lot more for than theirs, to see how well it works. Yeah. I'm just going to add him to stage and see if that fixes it. He is in here, but his camera isn't working. Yeah. Yeah, Skull's pointing out the Happer Chud, who I didn't watch the video, but I saw that he's already had a video come out about him that was an issue. I don't know if anyone's seen that, like one of his old videos or something. Oh, okay. Guys, we have John Ruddock with us. Aim the stage. You got your mic on, buddy?
Yeah, can you hear me, John?
Yes, I can hear you. Welcome to Stream of Consciousness, John Ruddock. Great to have you back on the show, mate. I can see you're in Parliament as well.
Yes. First week back in about 6 weeks.
Yeah, and of course the leader of the opposition in the upper house couldn't make it in there today because against all standards and every tradition, he was dragged into the ICAC today. Now, mate, you've been on this for a really long time, and I know you're a huge supporter of a lot of the guys who've gone through ICAC before. What are your initial thoughts about this? Like, where's your head on it? I saw your question in question time today about the leaks, but like broadly speaking, where are you coming at this from? What's your attitude to it?
Okay, well, look, because I'm a libertarian, I hate the government, and the intelligence agencies are the government over the government. They're very opaque. And what happens is, Robert Conquest's first law is that if you set up any institution, and if it's not explicitly right-wing, it will with time become left-wing. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now, what happened and I was a big fan of Nick Greiner in the 1980s. Now, what happened was, before Greiner came to power, we had a genuinely corrupt Labor government here, which everyone's forgotten about because at the same time, Joe Bjelke-Petersen was happening in Queensland. Peace be upon him. Now, so all the focus was on Joe Bjelke-Petersen. Now, Petersen, Joe made Queensland boom. Okay, but there was about 70% of the level of government corruption with SP bookies and illegal prostitution and corrupt cops, corrupt magistrates, and corrupt politicians and ministers. And then Greiner's the opposition leader. He says, vote for me. We're going to set up the Independent Commission Against Corruption. We're going to stamp all this stuff out. So it was the second bill he ever put into Parliament. And then, 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, poor old Nick Greiner fell over and had to resign because of stupid ICAC. And he took it to court, Mr. Greiner. And the court, within about 6 weeks, fully vindicated Mr. Greiner, but the damage had been done already.
Yeah. And he was out. And he was out by then too, wasn't he? Like he fell on his sword.
He was out of Parliament. There'd been a by-election to replace him. And he's a very competent human being, Nick Greiner. Well, I mean, when you get on the CBD Metro, when you drive on WestConnex, when you go down the second Harbour Crossing, or one day when you fly, or Barangaroo or Crown Casino, or you fly into the Western Sydney Airport. I mean, that's Greiner's real legacy because Barry O'Farrell appointed him as head of infrastructure in New South Wales. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, and look. At the same time, when Joan Kerner was destroying Victoria in the late 80s, Nick Greiner was balancing all the boring stuff, balancing the books. Okay, well, stuff like that keeps the country, keeps the state afloat, keeps us all happy. You don't notice it, but all those little things. And Nick Greiner was very good at all that. Now, then what happened? Look, I was happy the day that I'll have a confession for you. I was happy when Barry O'Farrell fell over, right? Because yes, I was heavily involved in the New South Wales Liberal Party at the time. Okay, but now that I'm out of the New South Wales Liberal Party, the truth is, Barry, what he had done is he was the opposition leader when the whole Obeid thing is blowing up everywhere, and it was a big scandal, right? Eddie Obeid was making like $100 million, and all of his mates were making 10, 20, 30 million bucks, and that was a big bad scandal. And then Barry O'Farrell then went out there and pontificated. He said, vote for me. We're going to have zero corruption. Now, then stupid Barry's up there at the ICAC 2 years later, not long after he's won the biggest election victory in the history of the New South Wales Legislative Assembly. And he gets up there and they asked him a million questions and he tripped up on the bottle of wine, okay? And he would have just forgotten it. And then when that was pointed out, because he'd built himself up as whiter than snow, Mr. Purity, Mr. Anti-Corruption, he had to go and step down. So what's happened here, and then ICAC just relishes this stuff. They have You know the big crime, the big massive crime of ICAC is this. Is the public inquiries. Okay, it's the perp walk, it's the mugshot. Okay, it's the presumption of guilt. Okay, now in the other states have their equivalent of ICAC, and I understand that some of the other states used to also have public inquiries. It's like a public star chamber, but all the other states have wound that back, and the federal ICAC is conducting inquiries right now. And no one knows about it. Why is that?
So I'm told. Yeah,
that's right. Because they are questioning people. They're questioning people, but they're not putting them on the stand. Now it's like if the cops knock on your door and they want to talk to you about, you punched someone at the pub last night, okay, and they're questioning you about it, and they haven't charged you. That's not made public. So what? All these people are hauled there before ICAC, 2 blocks from here, and it's like just the fact that you're called to ICAC sort of stains your life.
Well, it's not even just that you're called to ICAC, right? I mean, one of the things we've seen them deliberately doing over the last 2 weeks of evidence is even if you're just named. And so we have this practice of they're going through group chats, they're making them name all their colleagues, people who've never done anything wrong, people who are not even involved in this are forced to have their names read out by the ICAC in this kind of scourging that serves absolutely no purpose. Anthony Roberts, one of the finest men in your parliament, has had his name read onto the record in ICAC. Now, I've counted, because I talk to Robbo most days, and I counted, and he's been mentioned like 20 times for no other reason than he is in the right of the Liberals. Yep. And council assisting will keep bringing people back to that and say, well, who is in the right of the Liberals? And make them read off all the names. Like it's almost Soviet in a way. Like it's the kind of thing you'd expect to see in the Soviet Union. Like
now, my big gripe is that there's an unholy alliance between ICAC, the Sydney Morning Herald, and the ALP. Okay, and it's become this big machine. Now, the Guardian's not getting the leaks from ICAC. News Limited isn't getting the leaks from ICAC. Stream of Consciousness isn't getting the leaks from ICAC.
Well.
But it's been happening now since for about 15 years, where ICAC
absolutely,
ICAC's PR agency is the Sydney Morning Herald, and every day the Sydney Morning Herald online and in the paper they've got this like mugshot, who's who at ICAC, okay, and then they say things like, oh, get your popcorn out. They're all relishing it. They're all relishing naming and shaming these people. And the great crime is that they were trying to recruit people to the Liberal Party who didn't support same-sex marriage. And look, 39% of people out there didn't support same-sex marriage. So it's not a fringe view, okay? It's pretty mainstream. Now, that it lost on that vote, but, you walk down the street and more than 1 out of 3 people you walk past was a no voter. Okay, well, and some people wanted to recruit those people to the Liberal Party. Shock horror, what a crime. In Canada, is Australia's constitutional twin. Canada, that the Australian Constitution, we're taught it, it's a combination of Washington and Westminster. No, it's not. We copied what the Canadians did 3 decades earlier. Our constitution, the Canadian constitution, a few little differences, not many. Now in Canada, when their members, the party members, get to vote for who their parliamentary leader is. Now, you know what they do when let's say it's the equivalent of Malcolm Turnbull versus Tony Abbott. There's a ballot coming up in a month's time. They go on massive door-knocking campaigns. They all meet somewhere and they say, right, we're going to go and door-knock 10,000 homes in these suburbs, go around and say to them, and let's say this is the Tony Abbott, the pro-Tony Abbott people. So they knock on doors and say, hey, are you following the Liberal leadership spout? And they say, yeah, I'm really into it. Okay, so do you support Tony Abbott? They say, yeah, I love Tony Abbott. Hate Malcolm Turnbull. Hey, well, sign this form, $15, you get a vote. Okay, great. And that's celebrated by the national media. Now, in Australia, for some reason, we've got this culture that if you try and get your mates to join a political party, Brad Stack, get in ICAC, that's a crime.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I mean, when you talk about copying things, I mean, one of the most fascinating things about our ICAC is it's copied from the Hong Kong ICAC model, right? Yes. Which was in full flight in the 1980s. I mean, going back to the whole Barry O'Farrell thing, there is one piece of the ICAC's history with the Liberals that I don't think many people know that I was there for, is by the time we were going into the 2011 election, in the lead up to that election, prior to the revelation that they were actually going to do over Eddie Obeid, which I think from memory didn't actually come until after the election. I mean, it was like an open secret that it was going on. And I think maybe Ian MacDonald had been involved, but it wasn't official. Internally in the Liberal Party, months and months of work had been done on reforming the ICAC and the need for reforming the ICAC. And the basis for that went all the way back to not just the Peter Debnam years, but the Brogden years. I think I still have every one of them that I ever wrote, and I've spoken to a lot of staffers over the years who kept theirs. But there existed hundreds, if not thousands, of letters from Liberal MPs from the early 2000s, from the Chicker-Brogden period, then later into the Debnam period, referrals by MPs to the ICAC on Frank Sartor, Joe Tripodi, Eric Roosendahl, John Jalabosco, Eddie Obeid, right? There were stories, everyone's kind of memory hold this, but there were stories about these guys coming out on a near weekly basis about their various malfeasance, Zach, and their, the things they were being accused of. They were out in the public domain. The opposition at the time would write a letter, we would do a press conference, and nothing happened. For close to a decade, nothing happened. And so there was this absolute contempt internally for the ICAC. And there was serious policy discussions where we said, well, do we even need one anymore? And the basis for saying, did we even need one, is that the ICAC in Hong Kong was created because everyone else was corrupt. And so you couldn't investigate. You couldn't investigate anything because the cops were corrupt, the politicians were corrupt, the lawyers were corrupt, the judges were corrupt. And so you needed this other model to prevent it. Now, that very much, as you said, as you pointed out at the beginning, like that very much was the case for a very brief period of Australian history and state politics in various states. But really, by the early 2000s, are we really going to say that the New South Wales Police and the judiciary and the lawyers and the parliament, as it was in the early 2000s, was so corrupt that you needed an ICAC and these things couldn't be investigated and then simply referred to the DPP? Because when you read everything that was ever written about the Hong Kong ICAC, the one thing all those investigators say is that it was a compromise and that the ICAC's ability to investigate things was never as good as the police. The only thing they had going for them was that they were white knights and that they were investigating things for the right reasons. But they weren't investigating them as well, and their capacity to prosecute them was in many cases non-existent. And that's exactly what we have with our ICAC. You know, if these guys had a problem with what the reformers and Michael O'Hara and whoever was doing, call the fucking cops. Exactly. Right? You know, is it illegal? Like, if it's, I mean, the corruption's in the Crimes Act, right? What we're effectively saying is that there should be a special zone of sanction, you know, that isn't criminal. That you can just have this ability to drag people through on nothing, and destroy their lives for no good reason, ultimately, except in many cases politics.
What I understand they do in similar jurisdictions like New Zealand and Canada and UK. Is that they don't have an ICAC, okay? They have a special division within the cops, and now they'll be pretty senior cops, and they've learned that what they need to do is rotate the people that work in that division, because if you stay around for too long, you become corrupt yourself, okay, with all that power. So they circulate them through, and it's just a normal police division that does look out for government corruption, because it does happen, right? So you need something there. Now, I think that's a much better model, because now if it's with the cops...
Absolutely.
What the cops need to do is they need to abide by standard principles of criminal justice. Yeah. Presumption of innocence, privacy. That's right. And all these things. And then behaviour gets weighed against actual laws. And if it's been breached, okay, charge them. Now, what ICAC does is it's all about a vibe. It's all about a vibe, right? And because the people they're setting the vibe are hardcore left-wing activists. I mean, you just look at their tone and their repeated questions about, it's like they really seem to think it is a crime to be a conservative. And that's because
absolutely.
They're just hardcore leftists.
Yeah. Exactly. And look, I mean, to that point, I mean, when about having cops do it, I mean, look at, I mean, I tweeted this earlier in the week. I just think one of the most classless and graceless displays by a jurist I've ever seen in New South Wales was Fabian Gleeson being asked by Rob Asaf if he could have a 5-minute toilet break after having been on the stand for hours. And Gleeson snapping at him and saying, make it 3. Now, if you had police detectives down at Surrey Hills interviewing Rob Asaf, you know, he wouldn't have, I mean, I think Asaf even said at one point, I'm getting a bit hangry or something. No, he would have had 2 Big Macs in front of him. He would have had as many toilet breaks as he wanted. Because when you talk to actual cops who investigate actual crimes and get actual convictions, something that only one ICAC investigation of note has ever produced. One. I mean, forget about all the, you know, call centre guys and idiots at the universities and whoever who've been convicted. I mean, if we want to talk about the pinnacle of corruption, what? They got Eddie O'Beid and they got Ian McDonald, right? That's it.
The cops would have got them anyway because the evidence was.
The cops would have got them anyway. Exactly. So, I mean, we have advanced beyond the need for an ICAC. What I think guys like you, John, need to be thinking about and talking to other smart people in the building about is what the future of these commissions really looks like. And the place to start is, I mean, on the one side, you've got the ICAC, which is just a complete shit show. But on the other, you have the New South Wales Crime Commission, which does absolutely spectacular work and has been keeping people in New South Wales safe for decades. Right? One gets all this attention, one gets all these resources, the other is in a leaky building in an undisclosed location down in, I think it's Haymarket or something. You know, the Crime Commission has something that the ICAC doesn't have, which if you are serious about going after real corruption, you absolutely need, which is asset forfeiture. Right? These cases would be a lot different if, I mean, Eddie O'Beid probably had it in his head a thought that I can do 7 years for 30 mil. I could probably do 7 years for 30 mil, right? I could do 7 years for 30 mil. I don't know about you. I mean, you're doing 6 years in the upper house for way less. I mean, I think that's a worse sentence. But if you say, and this is the lesson of the Crime Commission when dealing with serious crooks, is if you say to them, oh, we're not going to put you in prison. We're taking your assets. We're taking your money. We're going to put you back to square one. That's when they sing. And, you know, it's fascinating to me. This is a fascinating thing about the ICAC I noticed when we were in government. For all their caterwauling and crying that they weren't given enough money, the one thing I never heard the ICAC ask for were asset forfeiture powers. Yeah. Which when we came to government in 2011, that was the first thing Philip Bradley asked for from the Crime Commission. He said, and at that point, like, you know, they were about to have problems of their own. But in his first ever briefing on the first ever management committee of the Crime Commission that he briefed the New South Wales government on, he said, give us asset forfeiture powers, and fix the leaks in the roof. All right? And today they have those things, and New South Wales organised crime is basically non-existent. It's run out of Iraq and Lebanon. And look at how much better New South Wales is doing than the guys in Victoria with their daily firebombings and stuff, right? Rolling all these agencies up into one and giving them those asset forfeiture powers so that, because you got to think like a lawyer, right? For the ICAC, the brass ring is the Kate McClymont profile piece, or in this case, the Bevan Shields one, right? Yeah. Do you remember the Jeffrey Watson with the boxing gloves in the AFR that they did back in 2014, right? That's what all these guys want. Peggy Dwyer got hers the other day, right? But if you're working for the Crime Commission in total secrecy, you know what those guys want to prove their merit is the zeros on the receipt. And so when they say, you know, when they go out and they look at which people they are going to drag in, their net worth, their actual contribution is what they consider. Not how good of a story it's going to be, but how much money they're going to seize. So they can continue their operations and they can continue doing more investigations. So that's the kind of carrot and stick the government needs to use with these agencies. Because right now, like you said, any organisation that is not explicitly right-wing becomes left-wing. I mean, any group of lawyers, I mean, if they are not given some kind of other success metric, will eventually just want to get their names in the newspaper.
It's all about fame building for these people, and so far it's worked. If you've been a good assisting counsel down there, your career sort of kicks along pretty well. Now, talking about the money that they're always asking for more money, they spent $25 million on Operation Spicer. Operation Spicer was a really big deal. 10 Liberal MPs lost their seat or resigned from.
It was 11 actually. It was 11, but I was only talking about right wing ones. Bart Bassett, the member for Londonderry. Bart went, but Bart was a moderate. That poor bastard was just collateral damage. I don't think he even did anything wrong in the end.
Now they massive. It was just like today, massive headlines. The Sydney Morning Herald just licking their lips. It was Christmas for them. They just can't think of anything better than shaming Conservatives. And so they go through all this. They got all their headlines, all the million articles, Kate McClymont articles in the Sydney Morning Herald. Now then they finished their inquiries. Then ICAC took 2 years to write up their report. Okay, that's a long time. Big thick report. And they recommended that 7 people be criminally charged. Okay, cool. Send it off to the cops, the DPP. They took 6 years, John, for the DPP to respond. 6 frigging years. People in all this. People, you can't really sleep at night thinking that ICAC might go and the DPP might go and seriously charge you. After 6 years, they came out, and to all but one, they said, "Look, we just don't have sufficient evidence here for a criminal charge."
And Harcher still isn't in the courts. I mean, and look, I mean, I haven't seen Chris in years, but I mean, from what I know of him, Chris will not live long enough to see himself be charged, like to actually go to court. He will not go to trial, ever. Like the man he must be in his early 80s already. And, at this point, like, what was the point of that entire investigation? I mean, the only thing that tickles me always is that they do these things targeting right-wingers. They always scalp one of their own. Right.
Oh yeah. Well, there's two Labor local councillors that no one's ever heard of before who were tacked on right at the end. Okay, we haven't heard from them yet, and it'll be very brief. Yeah. So they've tucked in a couple of.
And look, I mean, everyone knows. I mean, look, and I should have front loaded this at the beginning, like as a full disclosure. I actually don't know any of the guys involved in this except for Damien. Who's obviously been a great friend of mine over the years. His brother actually represented me in ICAC. So I've known the Tudor Hopes my whole working life. But those boys, the Ellises and everything, I don't think I met them maybe more than a handshake at a function. But interestingly enough, I did actually work for John Nassif, thank Christ, after this thing. So I think this investigation goes until 2023. I worked for him like well after all those guys had left. But if there's one thing I learned from that
you were a client. He was a client of yours while he's in Lebanon.
Exactly, and it's all above board. But Sharangan was as slippery as a wizard's sleeve. Everyone knew that, right? That guy was just dodgy. Like, everyone in the New South Wales business community knew that. I can't believe that they're only getting to him at the end, and it's this, like, nothing allegation. Because, of course, the one thing everyone also knew about Sharangan is that he, Maheshwara or whatever his name was, he also illegally recorded all his conversations.
Right.
Which I suspect is why they're going to go a bit easier on him. And also why, as you may recall, you were asked to legislate on a bill to allow illegally recorded conversations to be tendered in evidence. Doesn't it all kind of make sense now?
Look, as soon as I got here, which is 3.5 years ago, I started hearing these rumours from every corner of the parliament. 6 months before the next election, Labor Party's going to drop a big ICAC inquiry on the Liberals and the Hillshire Council. Here we are. Okay. And now I'll tell you what my major gripe is and what I raised in the chamber today. Okay. When Nick Greiner, the leaks. That's where we can look. Maybe ICAC's innocent, but let's walk the viewers through it. when the Act was first written in 1988 by Nick Greiner, it had this clause 111. It was called the secrecy provision. And it had these really strict rules that people who work for ICAC or who are agents of ICAC, and if they come across information during the course of their work at ICAC, during the course of an investigation, that they can go to jail for up to 12 months if they leak it. Okay, nice and clear. And the ICAC Act has been amended about 20 times since then, and they've never touched that bit. It's just been sitting there. And I think that they forgot about it. I think the Sydney Morning Herald forgot about it. The Sydney Morning Herald got out ahead of themselves. Now then, what happened was I start reading this ICAC thing 4 weeks ago, and I keep reading sources tell us, sources who are not allowed to disclose information have told us this. And they're telling us stuff about very precise details about the case. Yep. And they're also leaking what the ICAC strategy is in relation to Catholic schools. Yeah. Okay, so they just keep telling us. Yeah. Okay, they say so. Where are they getting the leak from? Where are they getting the leak? Is it from the Gunnedah Budget Society? Is it from? It's coming from ICAC. Now, what they might have done, because Chris Harcher put in an identical complaint to me to the ICAC inspector about 10 years ago, because the first he knew about ICAC was investigating him is when he read it in the Sydney Morning Herald. So he put in a complaint, just like I did last week, to the ICAC inspector. And he said, well, look, I think the Sydney Morning Herald's leaking. And that just went on and on and on. And eventually they said, no, we can't find any evidence. Okay, well, I've got 3 new Sydney Morning Herald articles from the last month that all say things like, "Oh, we got a leak." Now they're not. Yesterday I had to spare 45 minutes. I went down to the Parliamentary Library. They've got all the old Sydney Morning Heralds going back to the 1830s there. So I just sat down there. And I went through the articles from 2013, all the Sydney Morning Herald articles, and I found 3 more articles where they just brazenly said, Fairfax Media has learned blah 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 blah, confidential information about ICAC. Okay. So, where's this information coming from? Since we know it's a crime, it's a bigger crime.
Well, the famous one you've got to go back and look at isn't actually in the Sydney Morning Herald, right? But it's in an associated outlet, which was, of course, in 2013, Chris Spence and Darren Webber, who were the members for, I believe, Gosford and Wyong at the time. Chris Spence, who, of course, and this goes to show everything you need to know about the ICAC. They tried to make findings about Chris Spence in 2014. He got out of it. I mean, he appealed them. He found to have no case to answer for. Spence would eventually become Anthony Roberts' chief of staff. Now, look at how many times, of course, they now mention Chris Spence, who has done absolutely nothing wrong, and yet he is constantly referenced in this inquiry. But go and look at the day Spence and Webber's houses were raided, and how the Channel 9 cameras were outside their house. And that was when we were treated to the spectacle, and we've never seen it since. I think it was so idiotic at the time that ICAC stopped doing it. But you know that the ICAC guys actually have spray jackets with ICAC written on the back of it, like they're the fucking FBI. Yeah, so you can go back to 2013 and see it. The day that they very obviously leaked to Channel 9 to go and film Spence and Webber's raids.
Okay, great. Well, that's great. I'll be looking that one up first thing in the morning. Thank you. That's great. So what we need to do is, what I'm proposing that we do, probably in the next Parliament, okay, because there's not that many weeks, parliamentary sitting weeks between now and the election, and I don't want to put the Liberals on the spot about asking them to support an inquiry, because we need a majority of the upper house to support an inquiry. Now, we need the Liberals and the Nationals to be on board with that. Now, if I go and ask them for that right now, they might say, because they're too timid to defend themselves, that they might say, no, John, we don't want to support that. I'm hoping after the next election, there's a few people in here from a little party called One Nation. And I think, given the latest poll, there could be 6 of them. And, that'll be a decent block in the upper house. I think they'll all be up for busting corruption, busting the Sydney Morning Herald. Okay, well, I shouldn't say busting. We need to have an investigation, Sydney Morning Herald. I want to call Kate McClymont to a parliamentary inquiry. I want to put her under oath. I said, Miss McClymont, okay, you've published all this stuff. Where'd you get the information from? Now, what's she going to say? Option 1 is she says, well, I'm a journalist. I don't have to disclose my sources. I said, okay, cool. Okay, that's your call. Okay, but you are Kate McClymont. You are the great corruption buster. And here you are. someone's committed a crime in giving you this information, Mrs. Climont. You know that's a crime. I'll read out the privacy, the secrecy clause in the act, the ICAC Act. I say, okay, so you're choosing to cover up a crime, but you're the great corruption buster.
Yeah.
So see what she says about that.
Well, but this goes. I mean, I made this point in my monologue at the beginning around the naivety of the Liberals and of Conservatives generally, and this belief that these institutions would do right by them, and also what I saw when we came to government in 2011, and then when the Liberals came to government again federally in 2013, this reticence to actually take revenge, which, yes, if we look at Donald Trump, is absolutely necessary. When we win, these people have to be subject of the most punitive, expensive, time-consuming, and credibility-shredding investigations possible, just like we were, right? They probably won't work, right? Just like Trump's prosecutions didn't work. But they will have the effect of saying, don't fuck with us again, right? Because, whoever comes in next in the US presidency, they're not going to do that again. They're not going to do tit-for-tat legal proceedings. They're not going to put their political enemies through these processes, because now they know it's a curse on all their houses. What these people exploit ultimately is the tender-heartedness of Australian conservatism, which has always been like that. These are not bad people, which is why they so often lose. And if there's one lesson that the Australian right needs to take from this ICAC investigation, and what I have no doubt will be NAC investigations into One Nation, I said at the beginning of the show, I said, look, mark my words, there will be a public hearing by the NAC either before 2028 or in the direct wake of 40 odd One Nation members going into the Parliament. They will turn around and do one, and it will be into them.
Are you saying that the federal NAC does have the option of a public inquiry?
Oh yeah, they have the option where it's in the public interest. I mean, that was the whole point of their the robo-debt inquiry, right? Because this is what got all the lovies with the I Heart ICAC tote bags and so agitated, was that Brereton didn't want to do a public inquiry into robo-debt, and he looked at it and he decided there was no case to answer for. So they actually absolutely can do one if they want. It's just they've so far declined. They have that ability. There's a presumption against it. But mark my words, it will at some point, before this revolution is done, that it will be necessary for them to have a public inquiry into them. Because lawfare is all they have at this point. Because one of the side effects in Australia of the kind of weakening of institutions by the left is they're now actually useless. Whereas the Americans had this window of competence. They had this window of competence where, educational institutions were still extremely left-wing, but they were still producing expert analysis. Where the New York Times was extremely left-wing, but still produced good journalism. That was a good window for the Democrats in the US. That eventually closed. Here, it's been going on for so long now. I mean, all the left have to go on is institutional numbers and domination, right? They're not actually very good at any of this. I could count, and I wrote them down today, I could count just 5 absolute errors made by ICAC in how they, how they put the allegations to Damien Tudor today. The worst of which was when she asked him about the committee report that he allegedly gave to Jeremy Greenwood. That is so far outside ICAC's jurisdiction that the very fact she asked it constitutes a breach of parliamentary privilege. And you guys should refer that to privileges. The only place that Damien Tudor can be sanctioned for giving out a upper house committee document to a third party is within the Privileges Committee itself. ICAC has no jurisdiction there at all. And to claim it is in of itself a breach of privilege, if not an offence under Section 1 of the Crimes Act of overawing the Parliament. And that's just the beginning. Like the fact that they brought him in today while Parliament was sitting. Yeah. Right. That is absolutely an overawing of Parliament. it shows either this intense arrogance or this grave incompetence, both of which are enormously dangerous. And they've got to be called out on it, because otherwise they'll just keep doing it.
I'm going to look into that. Thank you, John. No, that's really helpful. So yes, so this thing, look, it's going to be a bit technical for most viewers, but yes, so that's a very good point you've made, that she has raised something.
Sock puppets love it. Yeah.
Yes,
Sock puppets
yes.
love it.
That should.
I mean, another one that really agitated me, and it wasn't clear from the transcript, but it appeared that she actually directly asked Robert Saff if he was Catholic, right?
Right.
Which is, forget about New South Wales law. That is a breach of the Australian Constitution. Wow. Now, Rob, of course, is a proud Catholic. I mean, he certainly volunteered it. But, I mean, even on the census, the ABS cannot demand that you say what religion you are. In fact, I think your religion might actually be one of the only optional questions on the census. Because unlike political communication, which is an implied freedom, in Australia we have an explicit freedom of religion. And the ultimate freedom of religion is to withhold from the state what religion you are. And so just the fact that they had to ask him and that they've involved Catholicism to this extent is just an absolute farce.
I think they had two great points. I'm going to make the most of that tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Much else going on in there? You had fun otherwise.
Well, look, I'll tell you. Look, the one last little point to make about this is the other backstory, which is that Mark Latham has made really serious allegations about the Premier himself and fundraising dodginess. Okay, now who knows whether there's merit to it, but if this was a Liberal, this would have been an ICAC years ago. And so what they've done, and Mark Latham has had the coalition, the National Party, the Greens, and pretty much the entire crossbench fully on his side, saying that that there's something, we need to have some type of an investigation of what happened there, and they just stonewall it all the way through, and then and that has not been, the Electoral Commission has not referred that to ICAC, but now they've gone and come up with this big thing. So what else is happening? Well, tomorrow, I think what happened in the LA just maybe an hour ago is I think that they passed the medical cannabis bill in terms of being able to drive.
Buckingham must be happy.
Well, that's right. He's a fellow Taswegian, and now what Jeremy has done, who's a really great guy, but it has been the legalize it's Labor's cannabis party. He's just been the most faithful vote for Labor that you could possibly imagine on most things. He supported my uranium bill, which was very nice of him, which got through. But he's basically been a very loyal vote for them, and they payback time. Okay, well, it's good that I support what they're doing here. Because all they're doing is, like, if you've got medical, if you've got a prescription for medical marijuana, medical cannabis, and a lot of people that do are veterans because they're suffering from PTSD and etc. And cannabis is actually fantastic for the veterans, prescribed in the right way. Now, what that means is if they then go driving and they get random breath tests, they can get in serious trouble about it. So what Jeremy's organised it, so then, which Mins is supporting, that if you got a medical cannabis prescription, you've got to tell a government authority you've got it. So that's not great. Yeah. And then you get pulled over. As long as they can tell you're not impaired, you'll be fine. So that's his big payback. But besides that, I think
good for Jeremy.
Yeah.
Well, don't get me wrong, I love Jeremy, but him and I are actually on opposite sides of the fence on medical cannabis. I'm not a supporter of it. I never have.
Oh, really?
Right. Okay. Yeah. No, I've just because, I mean, I'm from I've known so many people who've done it, and I think that there is just so little oversight on it, and a generation of young Australians who do cannabis recreationally then basically scamming these dialer doctors to get scripts of like extremely high potency cannabis intended for cancer sufferers. And they're just getting psychologically one-shotted by it. And, look, my view has always been full legalization. Just legalize it, right? But make it so that, 32% THC strains are going to the people with cancer. And yeah, so everyone else can just go buy some bushweed and chill out and watch Netflix and eat a fucking sandwich. Like, what we have right now actually in every state really, because it's effectively federally regulated, I think is going to lead to some really bad outcomes. I mean, back 10 years ago, when medicinal cannabis was first being put on people's radars, the industry spent a lot of time debunking a lot of those studies on like cannabis causing psychosis, which 100% should be debunked, because the average person smoking the average amount of cannabis that's grown in some basement hydro plant or out in a field is never going to smoke enough to get psychosis, right?
Yeah.
But when you start giving 25-year-old girls with BPD who sit at home all day in their grippy socks watching cartoons 32% THC cannabis and not monitoring it and not getting them to go to a doctor or a psychiatrist and just like signing the scripts because they keep paying $600 a month, you're going to have grave problems. You're going to have absolutely grave problems.
So that's an interesting approach. So you're saying you'd support cannabis being as legal as carrots. So you grow carrots.
Absolutely, yeah.
And but then with the actual, like, are you talking about the gummies or like the
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is the potency of the drug, right, should be in some way regulated. And there's a really easy form of regulation for it, which is that if you can grow it in the dirt in your backyard, or your mate can grow it in a field, or at the outer edge if someone can grow it in a very small scale commercial hydro operation, then that's absolutely fine. If it's grown and farmed specifically for the consumer market, for consumer tastes, that's fine. But delineate that from the products that they have on the market now. Back in a more saner age, remember, we used to just be able to go to the chemist and get 10 milligrams of codeine over the counter and take it when we had a headache and no one cared. But you couldn't go to the chemist and get 20 milliliters of morphine in an ampule, right? Because we decided that the potency was a factor. That is what we effectively need to do. We need to do with cannabis what we used to do with opiates, and say, look, there's a threshold of potency that the consumer should not have access to without medical supervision. That's very easy to do. But for some reason, they don't want to do it. Now, look, a big part of that is the cannabis industry itself, which over the last decade has grown just completely disinterested. Yeah, I mean, the cannabis industry is going to make less money out of legalization than they do out of the current regime. The current regime keeps prices high. The current regime means they're making a consistent product that can be then put in multiple different uses, right? So this ultra high potency cannabis, it can be sold as leaf to people to smoke and vape. It can be put into oils, which are then sold. It can be put into the gummies, and it can be prescribed at a very high price point, particularly in countries like Australia where we have a PBS, or in the NHS, or in Canada. So it becomes, or under the insurance regimes of the United States, for people who are lucky enough to have them. So for them, it's a really great business model. But it's not a great business model in a country like Australia for just ordinary cannabis users who transition to this stuff. And I don't think are being well served by it. And look, I've tried it. I fucking hated it. Like, I can't stand the stuff. I would love to be able to ring up some hippie and get him to drop off like a couple of sticks of bushweed so I could smoke a joint like once a month and watch Criterion Collection movies. But that's not a thing in Australia anymore. Nowadays, when you talk to someone who smokes weed, more often than not, they will be through dispensed or Alternaleaf, and they will be getting these products delivered to their house for a premium price. And then the price is the other thing, of course. Like, it's just ludicrously inflated compared to people used to just go buy a couple of sticks of weed and be completely harmless. This is the one thing I get frustrated with Jeremy about, is because he kind of trades on this kind of boomer image of cannabis smoking from 20 years ago, where people who approved of it just kind of thought it was that, like just a guy with dreadlocks selling bushweed. Now it is corporations selling an incredibly potent drug that has not been very well researched, you know. So yeah, I get a bee in my bonnet about it. Look, I do think Jeremy's one of the best politicians in the country, and I celebrate his wins, even if I don't necessarily agree with them. But I do think for legislators, it's something, and probably more so for federal regulators than you guys, because ultimately this stuff is regulated by the federal drug administration. So.
Well, I'd be interested in your political judgment on this issue. So I moved a bill about 2 years ago saying that on the day of the next New South Wales state election that we should also have a plebiscite on legalisation of cannabis. The wording was cut and paste directly from the Florida referendum they had on the day of the last election, Trump versus Harris. And Trump endorsed it. Trump said, I'm voting yes, because he's a Florida resident. And DeSantis said, I'm voting no. 55% of people in, ruby red Florida these days said, yeah, we should make cannabis legal. Yeah. So I was saying that we should have that up as a referendum. Now, the Liberals, now putting aside the rights and the wrongs of that, if we had that referendum on that day at the next state election, who would it help politically out of the majors? Because I'm assuming it's a fairly big issue on the day about people voting for, yes or no to pot.
I actually think it would cut across pretty evenly across all parties. I mean, obviously, amongst Greens voters, it's going to be like as close to 100% as you can get. But I even think amongst like Labor and Liberal voters, most people are going to support it. The thing with Australia, which is like quite unique amongst the West in looking at drug legislation like that, because say when Colorado legalized in the United States, which was actually I think like almost 20 years ago now, like. Because the US federal government has so much of the drug regulation pie, like it really just didn't matter. Like, yeah, okay, it might be fine if you go to a dispensary and then you just go home and smoke it, but like you could never drive with it, you could never take it across state borders. I mean, our constitution in Australia is so well calibrated for the states to make individual choices about the legalization of drugs. The biggest impediment to it for us is actually the pharmacies. And we've seen that with vaping and tobacco products, right? Which could actually be like, and I would think maybe Queensland might be the one that does it, just based on a lot of the stuff I've been noticing and all of the clients I have in the fields I work in. Like, Queensland is so energetic about making people's lives easier and about supporting different industries. Like, Chris Foley could announce tomorrow that he was going to let, vapes be sold so long as the e-juice was manufactured in Queensland. He could absolutely do that. And it'd be very hard to stop by the federal government because we have a constitution that says you can't have limitations on cross-border trade. So, except where it is specifically forbidden federally, and it's not here, the states have enormous latitude. And so on something like cannabis, like it's absolutely the case that one state could go rogue and say, yeah, we're going to fully legalize and we're going to grow it and we're going to sell it in shops that we're going to license. And the other thing is, of course, under our constitutional tax regime, the states can only tax in the absence of federal taxes. So it would be entirely feasible for one of the states to go rogue, do a legalization regime, sell a consumer cannabis product, and slap their own excise on it. Right. Which, if you're one of the states not doing so well, and I'm sure I know full well that there are people in the Tasmanian government that watch my stream, I mean, that's something I'd be looking at, right? Because you can only tax in the absence of federal government taxes, So sure, they'll have to pay the GST or whatever, but, I really think that could be an option for the state that's brave enough to do it. But yeah, right now, I mean, in terms of bravery, in terms of standing up, particularly for like what I would call like a kind of emerging upper working class culture in Australia, Queensland's really it. Like, I'll give you one example. I mean, I know because you're friends with Mark Latham. I mean, Mark always gets a bee in his bonnet about greyhound racing, right? And you got dramas with greyhounds in New South Wales. In Tasmania, they're trying to ban it, and one of my clients is Greyhounds Australasia, who we work really hard for to try and stop the ban. Okay. But did you know in Queensland, David Crisafulli has just completely embraced the greyhound industry. He's built this multi-million-dollar greyhound track. Like, I was watching the CEO of Greyhounds Australasia in a committee inquiry earlier this week in Tasmania, and he was talking about how in New Zealand, the New Zealand greyhound trainers are leaving for Queensland to continue participating in the sport. And so that's the kind of political culture in Queensland, which is not to just to not care about these very like censorious progressive establishment attitudes and say, well, if it doesn't hurt anyone else and if you can actually grow the economy with it and it can actually support business and it's going to, in some way enrich someone's life, I mean, why not? Why not do it? Well, that's kind of the attitude that we need more of in politics, I think.
Oh, well, this is the attitude we had in the glorious 1980s. There was a real can-do spirit out there, and now it's good to hear Mr. Crisafulli's giving it a go, but I'm feeling pretty pessimistic in the short term about where things are headed. But I remain very optimistic long term. Look, I think at the end, I reckon in about 5 to 10 years' time, I reckon there's going to be some type of Albury meeting, like Albury the Second, like a repeat of what Menzies did in the 1940s. And they've got a big convention center down there in Albury these days. And I reckon we can have a big convention, bring all the little groups together, the big groups together. And I think we can make, it wasn't that long ago we had a referendum in this country and over 60% of people voted against the voice. Okay, so that basically tells me it's still a pretty right-wing country. We just need more credible, more likable right-wing leadership. Now,
exactly right.
We can't unite all the little warring tribes over policy. Now, I like Jared Rennick a lot, okay? But, I mean, he wants to have a public bank, and I don't want to have a public bank. So we're never going to – and we could sit down and try and thrash that out, and no one would have changed their opinion in 10 months of going for it. But what we could unite over is having a really big democratic tent where primaries – we have a big plebiscite of members, tens of thousands of people to select Senate candidates, upper house candidates, and a big national plebiscite to select the National Party leaders and the parliamentary leaders, state and federal. Now, I reckon people, and now that means there'll be some pockets of Australia, some suburbs where libertarians will go really well. A lot of places, more places, One Nation will go really well. Family First will go well. The old classical liberals will go well in some places. Now, all those groups are different, and shooters will be in there. All those groups are different, but we're all anti-socialist and we're all anti-woke. Okay, well, that's enough to deal with. That's enough for us to be a united thing. Now, this is what the Republican Party is in the United States. The Republican Party's, goes all the way from Susan Collins in Maine down to Ted Cruz in Texas, okay? But it's the one party. We're not going to unite over policy, but we can unite over a democratic process.
And look, I mean, that's the thing, right, that I think... I mean, One Nation, I hope they haven't hit their high water mark because because how funny it would be, I just want to see them win. But the thing that most worries me is if you look at what's just happened in Victoria, they announced their Victorian candidates the other day. Now, you've got how many thousands of Liberals who've quit since August of last year and joined One Nation. And if there's one thing, and I know it's something that, you were one of the very progenitors of Liberals wanting democracy and a say in who represents them in Parliament. This is what agitated so much of the Conservative base and the Liberals that they didn't have that.
Yeah.
Now they've all jumped ship and they've gone over to One Nation and they wake up one morning and Pauline Hanson does a press conference and they've never seen half of these people before. Right? They don't know. They don't know where the candidates are coming from. No one's like the One Nation branches aren't doing, candidate plebiscites. And I really think that's going to be their downfall. That, you have to, this is the lesson of the Liberals, right? You have to give the rank and file the right to choose.
1,200 candidates for Parliament, 1,200, and then 1,100 of them are going to miss out. Okay, now, even when the Liberal Party wasn't that democratic, they would still have at least a version of democracy where the people would vote for delegates who would vote at the plebiscite. So at least that was something. Now, I thought that didn't go far enough, and I think primaries is the best way to select lower house candidates, but that's a story for another day.
Oh, absolutely,
But yes, no, your point is a good one, that a lot of people are going to come over from the Liberal Party, and they should be, I understand they've been very welcomed generally. But, the problem is going to be that these candidates are just being imposed. Now, it could be that this is just a step. Pauline is going to be slowly but surely moving in the right direction. I endorse her approach to have not have had democracy up until this point, because it's very, when Pauline has suffered from, difficult candidate selection, and she suffered from the wrong people getting into Parliament. So understandably, she wants to be sort of keep it very tight. But that's when they were a small party. They're now they're now knocking on the door of being a party of government. And I hope that they did have a bit of a Democratic vote down in Farrer for David Farley. I think they had 96 candidates and 4 were allowed to go through.
I think they did, yeah.
Now that's called Iranian democracy, where you have to get selected to move through to the final round.
Which is how the Liberals did it for many years. That's how the Liberals did it for many years.
But it was something, but I don't know what happened after that. I mean, they had that little bit of democracy, and I thought, well, that's looking good. That's becoming a mature party. But anyway, look, you can't argue with Ashby and Pauline, because look what they've pulled off. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, well, the numbers are there, right? The numbers are there. They're getting the money, like the energy's there. It's just they have to maintain it and they have to not piss anyone off. I mean, I think the thing a lot of people forget, that people like me who do this every week and have been tracking it don't forget, is that they got to 30% in incremental jumps, right? Yep. And we've been saying every week we come on SOC, and our audience knows it. When we come on and I joke and I'd say 30% by 1 July, and we'd see the next poll and it's 23 and it's 24. Like, the risk for them is that the next election is in 2028. And I could see a scenario, whereas if the Victorian election goes badly, if the New South Wales election goes badly, which will all be down to candidate selection and policy and not paying attention, we're going to see it's going to go to 29, and it's going to go to 28 and 27, 26, and it's just going to be a slow bleed. Yeah. Then we could be right back where we started in 2022, come 2028, or 2025, where, we'll be sitting there going, where's the Jared Rennick again? So I think unless they police it, unless they keep moving the movement forward, it's a very real risk for them.
Okay, John, I want to run this scenario by it. Can I tell you what I think is going to happen? We're going to have the Victorian election, in October. It's barely going to sit before the next New South Wales election, which is in March. Now, what could easily happen? New South Wales is unique in that it's optional preferential, and this is catastrophic for One Nation and the Liberals and the Nationals. Okay, because so often people are going to vote, no, I One Nation, I hate the Liberals. Well, the truth is they do hate the Liberals, but they hate Labor a lot more. But anyway, they're still only going to vote one Liberal. One Nation. But now, what could easily happen under this scenario? We could easily end up with like 10 Liberals and Nationals in the Legislative Assembly after next year. And we could end up with, like, say, 15 One Nation. Now, that means, and this is a year out from the next federal election, that means the leader of the opposition in the mother state, the biggest state, the leader of the opposition is going to be a One Nation MP.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if that person is fantastic, like imagine if they got someone like a Victoria Bernardi stature in there, that would make One Nation as a real serious force.
Yeah.
Now, what they could end up with someone. I mean, gee, can I tell you how nervous it is for your first few months of Parliament? Okay, you just do not know what the hell's going on. There's a million standing orders. Everyone else seems to know what's going on, and you're nervous. And now, could you imagine being under that circumstances to walk up and say, "Oh, you're actually the leader of the opposition. Good luck." Okay?
Yeah.
Now. So what?
You're right. That's going to be a huge issue for them. Like
it is now. It'll now. So I know a lot of One Nation sort of senior people listen to the SOC. Okay, well, what I would say is of massive importance to the next federal election is getting someone into the New South Wales Legislative Assembly who is credible, who's going to make you look good, because because if they happen to be, look, it could be a repeat of Queensland 1998, total circus. No, I don't think it will be that. Okay, I think it'll be pretty good. But I'm saying if they want to go really well at the next federal election, and it's similar in Victoria, Now they probably won't be the opposition leader, because I think my hunch is the Liberals are going to win in Victoria. Might be in coalition with One Nation, and that'd be good for One Nation. It means they don't have the pressure of the leadership, and they can sort of they'll be rising up further and further. New South Wales, it's a really serious chance they could be the leader of the opposition in about 6 months' time.
Well, one of the big issues I think they have in New South Wales is what they had last time. I mean, something I don't think people appreciate is that last New South Wales election, driven by Mark's brand, they were polling going into it actually at 9%.
Yeah,
which was quite high for One Nation. I mean, I think even their high watermarks in Queensland state elections had only hovered around 8 up until that point. Where they squandered it was in seat selection. And do you remember they got this kind of obsession with running against Mark Curray and Matt Keane, and actually maybe Matt had resigned by then. I can't remember. But
no, they didn't. But they ran hard against Matt Keane. Yes.
Yeah, but like the seats where they had no chance. And so they took this statewide 9%. They didn't run well in other seats. And also they had this culture of saying, oh, well, if that's a good Conservative Liberal and it's a good Conservative seat, we won't really run there. And then in the wash-up, I mean, I don't think they cracked. I think they barely cracked 4%. I think they only just got Mark in, and they already had Rob in. I think this is the big issue for them, that you got to kill your darlings a little bit, and they're going to really struggle, I think, with that, to run as hard as possible in New South Wales national seats, in some of the seats that have been traditionally held by very conservative Liberals. And you've got to do that, not necessarily to win those seats, although I think they will win a lot of them, but it also is going to get them all those upper house members so they can control, have the balance of power. Right? Had they have spread their money and their candidates more widely around the Central Coast, the South Coast, and the outer western suburbs where One Nation were polling well, I mean, because 9 statewide is an average, there was places where they were polling a lot higher. If they had done that in 2025, they might have got 2 up, but also it would have been a nice big primary number for them to move forward with, and maybe we wouldn't have had to wait until August 2025 to see the surge. Maybe we could have seen, a groundswell behind One Nation earlier. I think that was a really unfortunate mistake they made, and I'm just hoping that they don't repeat it again. And I'm also worried that when you look at their output and you look at some of their rhetoric and this desperation to cut deals with the Liberals, and to go into it with that coalition, which I get it's healthy for the country to have a united Conservative front, but they have to remember the Liberals aren't pre-selecting Conservatives, right? I mean, look at what's happening in ICAC right now. I can guarantee you, in New South Wales at least, that there will not be a single actual Conservative pre-selected going into the next state election. So cutting that deal is kind of a fool's errand. They have to run hard against the Liberals in New South Wales and really start to cut their lunch and replace them. Otherwise, they're going to end up in the exact same position where the polls will say mid to high 20s, but the result will be far lower because they didn't run against the people that they're friends with. And I say this as someone who is friends with a lot of these people, but if One Nation does that, if One Nation picks winners out of the existing minority Conservative cohort, I think they'll struggle to crack 22, 23%. Right? There's no way they'll get into the high numbers that they're currently at. And I think if they do it really wrong and they devote resources to left-wing seats out of spite, which they've done before, just to annoy people, and then they will probably dip below 20. And that's disastrous.
They're going to have what they haven't had in the past. They're going to have so many volunteers from the campaign. There's going to be a tsunami of orange everywhere. And I really feel sorry for Liberal Party candidates in the next election. Who's going to turn up? It's almost going to be a walk of shame to say you walk around with the Liberal Party badge.
Well, it'll be where's the exclusive brethren right now? I mean, that's probably all they've got at this point. It's exclusive brethren.
yes, very clean cut guys.
Yeah,
you can tell who the exclusive brethren are because they just sort of look like they've never had one drink of alcohol or cigarette in their entire life, and they're very, very. They're like the Mormons, actually. They I think.
Yeah, I don't know. Do they do like rum springer like the Amish? I thought maybe they'd do something like that. They never used to let me near them when I was in the Liberals, so they knew that I was not the kind of person to ever talk to the exclusive brethren liaisons.
But look, mate, they're going to have a ton of cash, ton of volunteers, and they're going to have a ton of candidates apply to be candidates. Now, because they've got so much money now, I think they can employ, since it doesn't look like there's going to be any form of democracy, so it's going to be a top-down decision, at least for this coming election. Yeah. So, but you think with the personnel they've got on board, they're going to come up with some, pretty good candidates. You would think so. I mean, I thought the Cory Bernardi selection, it was perfect, and it was announced at the perfect time, about 5 weeks before. So, look, I do have to say, Pauline and Ashby, you got to take your hat off to them because they've pulled off a huge thing here. Now, nothing has happened like this before in Australian history because people say Robert Menzies started the Liberal Party in 1944. That is BS. He rebadged the UAP, and Joe Lyons rebadged the Nationalist Party, and Billy Hughes rebadged the Commonwealth Liberal Party. It was the same institution going back pre-Federation.
Yeah. They're all the same guys, and a lot of them are still there, right? They're still like liberal moderates today.
The Constitution is still there. The Constitution of the New South Wales Liberal Party, you could just keep tracing it back. It's the same document they had in the 1890s. Now the protectionists and the free traders did sort of unite in 1908. Okay, the Fusion. Okay, so that was a big realignment on the right of Australian politics. Nothing has happened like this since then. So that's over a century ago. A lot of people have had a go at it. Look, I have the highest regard for Cory Bernardi. I think he could be like Australia's Ronald Reagan. He's a very, very principled conservative.
Oh yeah.
He's a good guy. I think he's a fantastic. He tried to give it a go. Australian Conservatives, the great Cory Bernardi, didn't turn out real good, but Pauline and Ashby have pulled this off. So I sort of look back at I'm watching on and I'm thinking, I'll give them the balance of give them the benefit of the doubt when they make a strategic decision, because you've got to say on balance, their strategic decisions to this point have been pretty good. They've been better than what anyone else has tried to achieve in this sphere.
Absolutely. Well, John, thank you very much for coming on, mate. It's been illuminating as always. I said I'd only keep you for an hour, and it's now 9:30. I usually only go for till 10 anyway, but since I've deprived my sock puppets of 2 episodes, I might stick around with them and answer their dumbest possible questions and tell them about movies I've watched and things after a short break. So, mate, I will let you get back to the important work of saving New South Wales from socialism. Thank you for coming on, mate. And please, sock puppets, give a big TLD in the chat for John Ruddock, member of the Legislative Council in New South Wales and leader of the Libertarian Party. Thank you, mate.
Good on you, John. Thanks for having me, mate. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks, mate. That was John Ruddock. Season 4. We're in with a guest straight away. So that was fun, wasn't it? Like, he's a very smart guy, and he's extremely passionate about that ICAC stuff, which I'm also very passionate about. So, guys, we're going to take a very short break, and I'm going to throw on an edit. See, I figured out how I can actually go for sock longer, right? Which is we do an intermission. So we're going to do a toilet break intermission, and then I'll come back. Instead of playing the weekly edit at the end, I'll play it in the middle. I'm going to check in on Brian because he did say he might come on later. So, yeah, I have a new edit for this week. New Oscar edit. So enjoy for 3 minutes and 42 seconds, and I'll be back shortly.
Words so contrived. embrace it? Should I run? What motivates me? Hatred? Is it love? What's more wrong that I too wish to be greater? My mother wished she'd had a son. And even if I can't be the one, maybe I could at least help make way for him until the day that he comes. Maybe my name could also be known, that I help return good to the people, restore greatness to Rome.
Welcome back. Thanks for staying tuned. I'm actually going to start posting the links to those edits in the stream comments, just so because I like the guys who make them. But because we do get demonetized just for having the music on, but I don't care because they're all bangers. Guys, as you can see, we have Skull joining us, the official head of the Radical Rights Dirt Unit, taking over from me, of course, now that I have a real job. Skull, how you doing, buddy? You've had a big week. Give us the goss. Give us the... Yeah, I've got you in. Give us the weapons grade gear. What's been happening?
I don't have dirt to dig tonight. I just wanted to join and add a few comments, help you.
Well, you've had dirt over. You've had dirt over the last couple of weeks. Like you've had some. I mean, didn't you get in with the? Wasn't it you that broke the noticer thing?
I suppose I posted about it, one of the first to post, but I know it came through a couple of the group chats.
Man, take it from me. I mean, you have to shamelessly self-promote this shit. Like you can't. You're not going to make it as an opposition research professional unless you tell everyone it was you. And also take it from me. Sometimes stuff that you didn't do, tell people you did that as well. Like they can't.
I mean, I've been claiming scalps. I know we got the
yeah.
There we go. That's a bit better.
Skulls. You've been claiming skulls.
I've been claiming skulls for the Skull Throne, boys.
Yeah.
I know one of the old skulls we got was the Mayor of Wyndham, one of Dinesh's mates. I know he resigned a few weeks ago. Mummy Moira inadvertently got skulled. Rip.
I mean, what happened there?
I
mean,
because
feel bad for her.
Sometimes you got to know when to quit when you're ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. She would be one that would go to the cast and just keep fucking doubling down.
Yeah, never works. So what are your thoughts on what's been going on, man? What's getting the skulls the skull rolled up this week?
What's going on in the skull? I just wanted to comment. Ruddick was very, very good tonight.
I mean, he's fired up about the ICAC stuff.
He's also
Yeah.
just seems like a lovely guy. He's very, very willing to work with people. Like people can be parochial and
Yeah.
factional and stuff, but he just seems to be in it for the right reasons.
Well, I mean, remember in the last federal election before the rise of One Nation, when a lot of the Australian right seem to be kind of bifurcating towards are you like a fucking libertarian Ruddock supporter or a Jared Rennick economics enjoyer? There's an alternative universe where we'd be sitting here today, like debating about who was going to split the Conservative vote the most, because those guys were doing really well 12 months ago, and then of course One Nation happened, and it's what it is. But no, I have a lot of regard for him. He's definitely one of the better guys in there, and but not just that, but like, look, I spent most of my career working in the Legislative Council, and it is an incredible place where you do a lot of interesting stuff, and he's really embraced that, and he's already, like that. You should have a look at that uranium bill of his. He did, like, he's doing more stuff at that level than I think anyone else in Conservative politics in the country right now. I mean, he's certainly doing more policy output than anyone else. Like,
and he's thinking about it, like his strategy and stuff was interesting to hear. Even though he's talking about not directly benefiting from it, just to how to grow the movement and how One Nation can be the most effective they can be, which is what we really need to be thinking of.
Well, I mean, John was also like that back when he was in the Liberals. So I think I was just starting out just when John was leaving. And he was leaving. One of the reasons he was leaving was because of that lack of democracy in the Liberals, and that people no one was listening. Which then, of course, brings you to the current ICAC troubles. Like, this is why all this stuff has happened, is because the party's, factional milieu is such a disaster that, people think these are the only ways they can go about to get things done. John made the smartest choice, which is he just left just get the fuck out. Like, which is what I've said to so many people in the last few weeks, in particular, when they ring me and they're going, "Oh, it's fucked," like, with everything that's happening. And like, obviously, publicly, I'm agreeing with them, but privately, what I'm saying to so many people is like, "Well, this is why I told you to leave 12 months ago.
Yeah,
this is why you should have gotten out."
It's funny. I'm in a few WhatsApp chats of some of the candidates down here in Melbourne, and there is just no one getting involved anymore. They're just no one's interested. Like, I feel like the last federal election, there was, something to fight for. And I mean, Peter Dunn was leading up to a couple months in.
Yeah.
But everyone's just seen the writing on the wall, and there's just no one fucking left. The only people left are on the bottom of a ladder that they're just hoping to one day get to the top of.
Yeah, just accidental candidates, like all the women from Hilmer's network and all those kinds of guys who've just been thinking, if I just stay quiet and support the moderate mainstream, one day I too can be a completely useless idiot in MJ Bale suit talking about the dumbest shit imaginable. Great. Like,
But the right one day they'll realise this. They're going to run out of seats to find. So
well, they're really running out of seats now. I don't know. I mean, I do think there's a chance that, like, particularly with the Liberals, like, maybe someone out there who's been in the background might decide, well, it's almost fallow territory now. Like, maybe in some of the, like, maybe in John thinks the Victorian Libs will do all right. I mean, I'm a bit more bearish on it, but maybe if it is really bad for the Victorian Libs, what you guys might get will be a bunch of guys who've been in the background, not willing to take a jump, who now decide, fuck it, I might as well just do it and say whatever I think. And it'll be like in this policy and ideological vacuum where if they even start to do like the most basic numbers, the party leadership might just go, fuck yeah, it's that guy. Just get that guy in. Like, that's kind of their only hope now.
So I thought we might talk about Victoria because you actually haven't mentioned that we have a new premier, which happened in
Ben Carroll, the Subaru Forester buyer. Yeah. No man in the history of masculinity has ever looked more like a middle-aged lesbian until Ben Carroll.
I've
It's
commented
crazy.
before.
Like,
What's up with our politicians having such puffy faces? Like,
so
I'm
there's a word for it. It's called neotomy, and it's when juvenile traits continue to be inherited after puberty, and it's caused by genetics. That kind of like face they have. I mean, Jess Collins had it too, right? She's
Jess
got it as
Wilson.
well. Like Jess Wilson, sorry, I forget I was confused. Like, let's be real, they're basically the same person. Yeah, there's a genetic basis for it. Speaking of genetics, did you see that Zoe Cabina was flirting with me on
Perfect
Mange
pussy.
today?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, she said she let me measure her cranium. So I'm
Well, I
getting the
think didn't
phrenology books out, guys. I'm getting them out.
I think was since the last stream I don't think you've been on since then, but she had a bit of a crash out about saying she wasn't right wing and was arguing with a few people.
I don't think there's ever been an assumption she was right wing. Like,
Right.
it's Quillette. None of them are right wing. I don't know where they all got this idea they were right wing. I think it's because there was that op-ed. I think it was in the New York Times or something that called them there was the intellectual deep web story, and it said like Claire Lehman is like the leader of the intellectual deep web, and they kind of tried to tar her with the alt-right brush before that completely fell apart, just because they had Milo on a podcast and she believes in race realism. That
You need to put
she must
intellectual
be
in
right wing.
air quotes and probably deep web in air quotes.
I don't know. I think they
how-
are pretty. I like them. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy that stuff. I mean, but as I've said on my Substack before, like I like reading stuff that women write because I don't know. I'm not a woman. I don't know what they think half the time. So if you want to know what women think, like read the shit that they write. And if you're like guys like us and you want to know what the tiny percentage of somewhat conservative leaning women think, then your only option is to read Quillette or Helen Andrews, who just actually today she did a really interesting piece on the culture of kind of race grievance in the United States. As a kind of companion piece of some stuff she'd written before, which is worth a read.
Well, I was actually listening to the latest Red Scare, which dovetails perfectly into that because they had the author of that I don't know what it was called, that Democratic insider who's just cracked the shits and
Oh, I saw that
he's
book. I
got left.
ordered it, but mine hasn't arrived yet. Yeah. Yeah, no, I read an excerpt of it the other day. I know the exact one you're talking about. What's it called?
Yeah, Evan Barker. Nothing left.
Yeah. They had him. They had him on because some of the stuff he was saying, like how basically it was like living inside an episode of The West Wing with these people. Or
it's a woman. Yeah, it's a sheep. I was confused by Evan as well.
Wait, there's a woman named Evan.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't. She essentially sounds like Dasha.
I'll have to. Oh, really? She's got the vocal fry, because man.
Yeah.
I have a highly collectible copy of Disco Elysium with Dasha's original voiceover work that they got rid of for the director's cut. And I'm not going to lie, I do play it from time to time just to only go through the subplot that she's in, just so I can listen to her in my earbuds. But, oh my God.
Nice and close. But I mean, yeah, that is interesting. I suppose in the quote thing, it's just like anti-woke. Which you could describe as right wing, but I know this chick Evan she essentially just has a psychotic break. Well, maybe not psychotic, but just has a mental breakdown after being subjected to years and years of racial bullying and subjugation.
Well, apparently that shit in the US is absolutely crazy. Like I've never seen it at all, but like. When we went there in 2015, so like before the 2016 election, in the lead up to the primaries, talking to like Republican staffers in like blue states, that was when like you saw the first warning signs when they would tell you about the kind of stuff that they were talking about. And then like when you're actually in the US and you're actually exposed to like regional news, and you saw some of the stuff they were saying, you're like, that's crazy, man. That's even worse than the Fairfax press here. Like,
Yeah,
you get
the operative example that
this.
she gave was she got fired because she asked a black congresswoman to speak to donors when Kyle Rittenhouse got sentenced.
Oh no.
And they're like, he didn't even kill any black people. What's the problem? What? How could you
Well,
How
he
could you
didn't.
tell her so?
He killed 2 sex offenders and a domestic violence offender.
Yeah.
Like,
Or,
you know,
yeah. Fucked his own. He killed 2, named 1, but
yeah,
um.
yeah. Oh, that's right. Killed 2,
Anyway,
maimed 1. Yeah. Yeah.
I
I'm looking forward to
I
reading that. Actually, there has.
no, sorry. I was just gonna say I did want to speak about the One Nation Victorian canvas because I was looking through it a little bit, and I think
Oh,
it's
here we
kind of
go.
interesting.
Skulls.
No, there's no
Well,
dirt.
a colleague of mine calls me the truffle pig. We'll have to start calling you the truffle skull that's going through the dirt. Yeah. What do you got, buddy?
No,
Lay
there's
it on
no
us.
dirt.
Oh, it's
I'm
not
not.
nothing yet. Ah,
No,
no.
no, I'm not
Oh
breaking
no.
dirt at 10 o'clock, 2 hours into a stream. I know how the algorithm works.
That's
It's
where I
gonna
do.
take
That's
me
where I do
up.
the Troy meme with me on the me as Achilles saying that is why no one will ever know your name.
I did see the
Yeah.
Odyssey in the last few weeks.
Oh, I saw it too. What did you think? Because this is the bit of the stream where we get into movies and shit. Because I've seen in the last week, I've seen the Odyssey and I've seen Spider-Man, which I saw last night. So lay the Odyssey on me. What did you think?
Um, Look, I was a bit stoned when I watched it, but it was. I thought it was interesting. I'd
We've
probably
talked about this tonight, Skull. What are you doing that? Why are you doing that to your body, man? Like,
yeah.
I,
Jeez, as
I
if you could
say
talk.
as I drink catgut red wine and vape.
And ate a cheese and meat only diet.
Well, did you see my tweet last night when I was at Spider-Man and I bought the ice bucket with 4 Jim
Yeah.
Beams and Cokes? And what no one noticed was I had a pack of Reese's Pieces and a pack of Pods in there, and I ate the whole fucking thing and I drank all 4 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a good night. It was a fun night.
But look, I liked the movie. I reckon it's kind of like lessened on me thinking about it afterwards.
I didn't hate it, but like I'm a connoisseur of Christopher Nolan films, and I mean it should come as no surprise, given I haven't published on my Substack in a long time, that I do just like start and not finish Substacks constantly at the moment, just for lack of time and interest. But I did start writing a review of it, and I think the point I was making was that like every single Christopher Nolan film until The Odyssey actually has the exact same plot.
Yeah.
Like if you actually break it down. So, well, actually, sorry. From Memento, which was co-written with his brother. So the first movie that Nolan writes on his own is Batman Begins, right? And then The Prestige, and then Dark Knight, and then Inception. Like, so you go down the list, right? And so like every single movie has the exact same plot, where a man is inducted into some kind of secret society who then has to go on like a personal journey of order fighting against chaos. But then he finds out that the real enemy is the chaos within himself. And then it turns out that nothing is what it seems. This is actually the plot of every single Christopher Nolan movie, except for Dunkirk, where it's in reverse. And where at the beginning of Dunkirk, you have this like really chaotic situation. And then by the end of Dunkirk, you have the creation of a new fraternity of like, of English honor and dignity that will go on to win the war. Every single fucking movie. And you go through them in your head and you use that description and you think, holy shit, John McGowan is fucking right. The Prestige is the same. Like, what are magicians? They're a secret society. Like Interstellar, right? It's a secret society underground who are trying to get off the planet. Inception, it's a secret society of guys who steal dreams. Tenet, it is explicitly
Literal.
A secret society. Yeah, right? Batman Begins, he joins a secret society in the beginning. Dark Knight, is the only one where he kind of tips that on its head, except it's still the new secret society that Batman creates. The Dark Knight Returns, it's a secret society that comes back. It's like every single one of these fucking movies, dude. And you really got to wonder, what's going on with Chris Nolan in that period? Like, I mean, does he know? He knows the handshake. Nolan knows the handshake 100%. But anyway, like, if you think about the plot
has he ever been to the island?
Well, no, because I think this is the other thing that is made like explicitly clear in The Dark Knight is that Christopher Nolan through that period was a neoconservative. Because, you know, The Dark Knight's subtext, it's about like, it's really about how Chris Nolan thinks the US should have prosecuted the war on terror, right? So Bruce Wayne, like, unilaterally invades China in that movie. Batman, like, builds a panopticon surveillance system. Batman, like, creates a false narrative to save the reputation of a really bad guy, but who the public needs to believe is a paragon. Like, it's amazing in The Dark Knight that, like, a character didn't turn to the screen and say, Batman is the CIA. Like, that's what that film is about. And so he's like explicitly a neoconservative. The Odyssey is like, I saw someone point this out the other day, and I think it's like 100% true. The Odyssey is like his written apology to the American left for being a neoconservative for the better part of 20 years. From 2002 to 2026. This is his apology. Like, I'm sorry, I believe George Bush was right. Right? That's what that film is about. But the problem was that it just whole bits of it fucking sucked. Like, there were bits of it I just really struggled with. Look, there were bits of it I was really impressed with. Like, I was impressed at how much of the Odyssey he got in there. Like, I really didn't think he'd get that much in. Like, because there were spoilers and stuff, and like there was stuff in the trailer, but like when they did Cersei and the pigs, I went, whoa, I wasn't expecting the pigs would show up. I thought for sure he'd gloss over that bit. Like, maybe it would be, like, metaphorical pig or something. When they literally turned him into pigs, I was like, oh, sorry, guys, spoiler alert. Spoiler alert for the 2,000-year-old book. But
the second oldest story in history or something. Bully Bullshit did ask, have you read it?
Have I read the Odyssey?
Yeah.
I read a good translation years ago when I was at school. And then I read, is it Emily Watson? The woke
I
read the newest one. And then actually, you know what I did on Monday? I saw a tweet from some tech bro, and I actually got Grok to write me because Grok reads all my tweets, right? And I have a project in Grok where it literally harvests everything I write and say. So it has like a record of how I talk. And so I got Grok to like read me the Odyssey in my own voice, like how I would have said it. I might just cut and paste it on Twitter because it is kind of funny.
How long is that?
That would, well, I know that's the whole thing. Like I've got Grok heavy, so it literally just did the whole thing for me. But so yeah, I've read it a few times.
I read the Iliad, and I started reading the Odyssey, but I couldn't get past the Telemachus shit at the start, so probably should go and try that again.
That is one of the more boring parts. I mean, the other interesting thing about the Odyssey, and like I've heard people say that they think he kind of patched, like he kind of like retconned this. But I actually do believe that this, like the stuff with Simon was originally in there, and that Elliot Page was never playing Achilles. Like
that's in the Aeneid, I'm pretty sure.
Because that's the Aeneid, yeah.
Yeah.
So I do believe that. Like I think he was trying to cast the net a bit wider with some stuff, but I don't know. Look. I wish I could have seen it in 70mm IMAX, like that. You know, maybe in 10 years I'll do it again. But...
Well, I saw it in VMAX, which I think is like fake IMAX, but it was pretty good.
I saw it in VMAX. I saw it in VMAX in Hobart. Normally I go watch movies in the shitty Glenorchy cinema. But...
Melbourne's the only IMAX in the Southern Hemisphere. But I think it's
only 70mm IMAX, yeah.
Yeah, somewhat. It's only
Do you know, a really interesting story is when I was a kid, like my first ever job was I worked in a cinema, and just because I stayed there way longer than any like adult man should work at a cinema, I eventually learned how to be a projectionist. But this was back before they did digital, so I learned how to do 35mm film. And when I was like unemployed in Sydney before I came back down, well, I was like, with no clients in Sydney before I moved back down to Tasmania, I was walking down the street and past a Dendy that had an ad up saying they were doing this like 35mm film festival and they needed a projectionist. And so I walked in and I said, yeah, I don't have any I don't have the certificate anymore, but I just showed them some photos of me in the bioscope from like 2002. And they went, you're hired. Like, they just took me up there and said, right, here's the film. Can you put it on the platter and can you play it?
It
took me like 20 minutes. And they're like, holy fuck. It was only for a weekend. I only did it for a weekend. But it made me think, like, fuck, I should have, like, gone and learned how to do 70mm. Because that's now going to be the big thing. Like, everyone around the world is going, there's just not enough 70mm IMAX screens, which would just be a 30mm projector, but, like, super big. And which I actually have no idea how they work, because a 35mm is that's still pretty big. Hyperborean, who's obviously also a fellow former Village Cinemas employee, says BioBox, not Bioscope. No, the BioBox is the room it's in. The Bioscope is the actual projector unit. So don't try to catch me out on that shit, bitch.
Back to the Odyssey, what you're saying about it's like left-wing apology, I didn't really get that from the themes. It just seemed like a very shallow, like, I don't know, just putting fucking Elliot Page and just having a diverse cast.
You know why you did
really
it, dude?
Underlying theme.
Well, this was the other thing I was writing about, is just how, like, indulgent, like, self-indulgent it was, because like Christopher Nolan, after this incredible career of making all these incredible movies, when Oppenheimer comes out, which I just don't think is I don't think it's even in the top 5 Nolan movies.
It was boring. I didn't like it either.
It was boring. And like, okay, Florence Pugh's boobs are in it, which I love them, but that was probably like worth the price of admission alone.
30 seconds out of 3.5 hours.
30 seconds of Florence doing a sex scene. I don't know if it was worth it. Which I'll raise this when I talk about Spider-Man later. It's one of his weakest movies, but he wins 2 Academy Awards for it. He wins Best Director and he wins Best Picture. But do you know what happened that year? That was the last year before they brought in the diversity rules.
Yeah.
So now, to be eligible for Best Picture, a film has to either have one of these 3 things. It has to be about people of color, women, or minority groups, or LGBTQ plus blah, 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 or indigenous fucking shit. Has to be about one of those things. The movie has to be about it. Or the lead has to be from one of those groups. Or 30% of the supporting cast must be from those groups. And so just go onto Google and look at Odyssey cast and do the math.
Yeah. IMDb, right? It'd be like 32% or something.
The Odyssey just barely got you 30%. And another really fascinating thing is go and look at some of the people who were signed to be in the Odyssey whose roles were cut. And so, like, a really great actor, that guy Cosmo Jarvis, who was in Shogun on FX. I don't know if you saw that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I've watched that 3 times already.
So, like, he was signed to do the Odyssey, and then he left, and there was like no explanation. But I was looking at it going, fuck, if they had to put him in the movie, they wouldn't have hit their 30%. Right? Yeah. I reckon that was all deliberate, and I reckon it's all because Nolan wants another Best Picture. Right? And so now there's the new rules. And so I reckon all this casting, like, Elliot Page is in the movie for like a minute and a half. Like,
she's in it for fucking
like 5 minutes, 5 minutes maybe. No,
I didn't.
It's not that long. It's not that long. It's the flight from Troy, and then it was the bit in hell. Like, and I don't was that even her?
No, there's more. No, there's more. Then it's like the end scene, because that plot runs through the whole movie, and Antonius and shit.
Oh no, I can't. I was watching it and I was thinking, this is not that much of the film. This is really not much of the movie.
I don't know. It wasn't like a lot in the volume, but it carried through the whole film.
But the thing is, and this is the sad thing, is like you notice it because Elliot Page looks so fucking weird now. Like
the thing is,
like when Hunter Schafer shows up in a movie, like you forget, and then you feel kind of gay about it afterwards. But like it's hard to forget with Elliot Page what's going on there. So
the thing is, I actually didn't mind Helen, Peter Leongo, or whatever. It actually did well.
Well, she didn't just play Helen. She also played Cassiopeia as well. Oh, was it
Clytemnestra?
Clytemnestra, yeah. I thought she was fine. Like I didn't. No, it was her too. She played both. She played both roles.
Right.
She played herself and her sister. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't mind that. Mom was fucking boss in that movie.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. And look, I liked the production design on it. Like, I got it. Like, you could kind of understand what he was getting at. I don't buy into that. Oh, it's all got to be fucking Greek. Like, let's be real. A lot of that shit looks fucking gay, right? Like, if you ever see those like period specific like boar's tusk helmets they wore, like. When I would play Rome 2 on PC, the first thing I would do is download like a completely ahistorical Spartan armor mod, because I just thought like 3rd century BC Spartan cone helmets looked dumb, and I'd want to walk around in like totally dripped out Corinthian helmets. So like I totally got what Nolan was doing with the production design. He just wanted everything to look sick. And
it was almost like
I don't care about that. Yeah, and
it's got like this sci-fi,
and the reason, like, and the fucking like Viking longboat is cool because like that's an actual boat, that's a real life boat that they just sailed around. And apparently, I saw a story. Apparently, like the crew are vomiting and shit, and he's just like, keep the cameras rolling, get everything like. So I liked all that stuff.
What do you reckon about the destroying of social norms, or however you describe it, Zeus's law kind of plot?
Well, yeah, but see, it's like Nolan watched one like podcast from one of those history bros about the sea people or whatever, and just kind of got one-shotted by it in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know if it needed all that, but that was one of the most Nolan things about the movie. Like, in the same way that, like, at the end of The Dark Knight Rises, where Bane's like, but it turns out Bane wasn't the guy all along, or it turns out that, like, at the end of Inception, like, it might have all been a dream or whatever. That whole, we were the sea people all along, like, that was very Nolan coded. I liked that. Like, but it's still not as good as what he did at the end of Tenet, where it was like, which I think is his best movie. Don't get me started on that.
I do like Tenet, actually.
Tenet's spectacular. I think Tenet's like hands down his best movie.
No. But I'm more talking about how the sea people shit that Odysseus goes. This world is dead. Hopefully, in a few hundred years, we'll remember and we'll create a new
well, have you seen that? Have you seen that interview he did with the Chinese academic?
No, I've seen it.
Dude, you got to see it. She's like a really big deal in China.
I saw your post. Or Drew posting, or you were posting?
I think Drew's been posting about it too. But and so she just basically opens it's a really fantastic talk, and she opens it with where she says to Christopher Nolan, like, "Are you a bard for the West's end times or something?" And like that was what her kind of takeaway from it was. It's like a serious like. Kind of like she's like the Nick Land of China, basically, and so her view on the Odyssey is like it's Christopher Nolan saying, "Yeah, the West is dead," when so many of his movies have been about actually, the kind of forces of good that protect the West, and then this movie is about we're fucked.
I
I thought that
I don't know if that's how I took it. I kind of made a joke about how, you can just interpret art as you see fit and make it work. It doesn't really matter what other people say. But I mean, if you look at the Bronze Age collapse, who wins out of that? Because really the superpower becomes probably Persia and then Athens and then Rome. So it's like the West is dead, long live the West kind of thing.
Yeah, which seemed like a bit of a missed opportunity. My favorite thing about the Odyssey the Iliad, the Odyssey, and all of Homer's books, poems, is the idea that there's like a moment in Western history which is like where mythology becomes history. Like it's this like time, like this gap between the two, and that was the thing. Like I think is the most interesting thing to explore about those works in art is, which I think maybe Nolan might have thought about at one point, but he just kind of abandons in the movie for just the aesthetics of it. But like in many ways, it kind of makes you appreciate something like just the kind of blockbuster spectacle of Troy, where they dispensed with that entirely. Like the gods do not appear in that movie. It's just a very like, it's almost like Black Hawk Down circa 1800 BC. And that's what appeals to me about it, is that you've just got this period, this period where it crosses over. And it's not even that long after the fall of Troy. Like we can stop even speculating and we know everything in a historiographic sense. But for that moment, we don't. And that's kind of the transition point for the West. If you go to China in that period, you look at, I think it's the Zhong dynasty, which is contemporaneous with the period Homer is writing in. That's not mythological at all. They have records of that, right? And whereas then if you go to something like the Arab Peninsula in, say, 600 AD, and to Muslims, that's actually mythological. But for us, we've had history for 1,000 years at that point. So I find that stuff fascinating.
Can you hear me, or am I?
Yeah, I can actually hear you better now. Your mic sounds better now.
Yeah, I put it on my headphones died, so I put on my actual mic, which is good.
I'm using my actual laptop mic, so before we started the show, Skull actually jumped on with me to test 4 microphones to figure out which one was less shit. Although I think some people in the chat have already said my mic was shit.
It's not. It's better than it has been, to be honest. But
Really, it's better than the old one?
Yeah, kind of. What I actually wanted to, because I know Odysseus sails off to the west, which is kind of a allegory for Rome if you're paying attention. But this is going to go over the head of kind of 95% people who watch the movie, if not 99%. So yeah, I don't know.
That's what but that was one of the this was one of my chief complaints about the film, though, is that Nolan was always one of those directors that demanded a lot of intellectual rigor from the audience. And I get things like that, and there are a few other references in there. Like, I felt by and large that this is almost his most accessible movie, except for the Batman movies, right? And even the Batman movies have a kind of opacity to them that. This is why they were so successful, is because no other superhero movie had that. Like the Marvel and other DC movies just kind of want to bang you over the head with really basic cape shit themes. Whereas he was at least still trying to do something interesting with it. But compared to say Interstellar, Tenet, Inception, The Prestige, this and Dunkirk, this just felt like he was he was telling, not showing a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I tell you what, though, I went and saw that last week and I really liked it. But then I went and saw a movie last night because one of my buddies was in town with his son, and we decided to go to the movies because there's not much you can do with kids. And we went and saw the new Spider-Man movie. And Like, I think if my mate Ben is in the chat, who I often talk to about Cape shit with, he will lose his mind at this because we haven't talked about it. But in the last, like, decade of superhero movies, this is the best one. Like, I didn't, like, tear up, but I was, like, legitimately emotionally invested in a Marvel movie for the first time since I was fucking 14. Like, that Spider-Man Brand New Day is it's not a masterpiece with a capital M, but it's definitely compared to the last 38 Marvel movies. Like, it is really weirdly good. And it absolutely deserves to just do the $1 billion it's just done at the box office.
I haven't watched Cape shit since 2010, I think, so kind of goes
I
over
stopped
my head.
watching, I think the last one I watched in a theater was Endgame. The Avengers
I never watched
one.
the Avengers. I watched Guardians of the Galaxy. I think that was the last one.
They got super lame at the end, though. Like, by the end of those
I didn't
ones,
even watch the third one, yeah.
So. And they did like a Christmas special on Disney as well, which I couldn't even. I think that was around the period where I cancelled my Disney subscription because I couldn't even watch like 5 minutes of it. I was like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I just rewatched Mad Men season 4, which, if anyone knows, is absolute fucking peak.
I can't even remember what happened in most of Mad Men.
So good.
What am I watching at the moment on TV? I started watching because I only ever have like one mainstream streaming service at the time, and I recently got rid of HBO when the last episode of the Dragon one came out, which I don't mind actually. Like, as far as mindless prestige drama goes, House of the Dragon is actually pretty good. But then I got Apple TV, and they've got a show called For All Mankind, which is that alternative universe US space program where the Soviets get to the moon before they do. And then they've done like 5 or 6 seasons of it, and it's woke as shit. It gets like the second season of it is just spectacular. Like, one of the best things they've ever done, Apple's ever done. And then it just gets more and more woke, and it's like, how many, like, because you can only send a black lady to space once, so then they have to like just keep sending more black ladies to space for like 8 seasons to really drill it home. So that really ended up sucking. I didn't watch the last few seasons, but they've now done a new one, which is about and it's called Star City. And it's about the Soviet space program so it's from the other perspective, and that is actually really good. It's unfortunately they've done the thing from like Red October where all the Russian people just speak in English accents. But
I watched Red October last. Did you see Alec Baldwin's fucking eulogy for Sam Neill? That was the fucking funniest thing I've seen.
No, I haven't seen that.
He just, Sam Neill passed away and they were in the movie, and Alec Baldwin essentially just talked for about 5 minutes about how good he was how good Alec Baldwin was in Red October. and then at the end he goes, Sam Neill, it's just so sad to see him pass.
That reminds me, I have to do my annual rewatch. Well, it's not annual anymore. It's for like once every 2 years. I rewatch 30 Rock, because that's one of my favorite shows. Really, you never see 30 Rock with Alec Baldwin?
No,
no, it's great.
Couldn't get
it reminds me of a time. It's one of those like pre-woke shows written by Democrats, like where it's like legitimately good. But yeah, dude, I was shocked about Star Wars. Like, Spider-Man. And it made me think about how disappointing all the other franchises are. Like, we haven't had a good Star Wars movie since the one with the fucking pod racing, maybe?
No, Revenge of the Sith, 2003, 2004, was it? 2005?
Oh, no, you're right. Yeah, that one was pretty good. That one had some good memes out of it.
Yeah, the last 2005, that was the best one.
But the rest of them sucked. Like,
yeah. Oh, what was it? Rogue Squadron, Apparently, people. I've watched that once.
Oh, it's got Ryan Gosling in it. I saw that. Yeah. You know what's fucked? I didn't like Hail Mary. Everyone had the Project Hail Mary. Everyone was like fucking glizzing over that movie, and I just thought this sucks.
I never watched it.
I didn't enjoy it. Like, oh great, there's a rock that speaks like a millennial. This sucks. My favorite movies of the year so far, I was ranking them the other day on my Letterboxd, which I'm not going to give any of you guys. Backrooms is great. Fucking loved that. Oh, Obsession was like number one. I've seen Obsession like twice. I took 2 Tinder dates to see Obsession just to see how they'd react.
I was gonna say it kind of sounds like, I know, real life reflection for you.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, it did actually remind me of my last relationship in a lot of ways, except that I wasn't the one that overdosed in that relationship. There was a really great movie called Iron Lung that came out at the beginning of the year about a guy stuck in a submarine in an ocean of blood, which just kind of sounds like a dream I would have at some point after doing too many drugs. But Iron Lung was spectacular, and it's so weird. It's a movie like this movie they made for like $100 grand that got a massive cinema release. There's been really good movies this year.
Yeah, I want to see Backrooms. I never watched it. Don't have a heap of time, but
Backrooms was weirdly good. Like,
no,
I was going into it thinking it would kind of be like slop, but I was shocked at how good it was, and just the craft. Like, it was like watching like a Zoomer who'd just grown up watching David Lynch movies. Like, it was that good.
Yeah, the thing, Backrooms and Obsession, they made them on like fucking nothing, which is
Obsession is now the highest. It's the highest grossing horror movie in history.
Yeah,
because it was made for a budget of $750,000 or something.
Yeah, right.
And it's made like it made like 500 million. But yeah, that movie was just absolutely spectacular. You know, Weapons was really good too, and the guy who made Weapons is making a Resident Evil movie next. And we've got a Robert Eggers werewolf movie coming out this year, which is going to be good. Yeah. So yeah. Swing State says, because I watched Critical Drinker, he says Critical Drinker says the era of woke movies is over. Yeah, I mean, I got to watch his review of the new Spider-Man because I like him. He's one of the few actual content creators whose stuff I actually watch. Now that I'm a content creator, I'm like, I'm not watching everyone else's slop. What else is going on in arts and culture? Has anyone read any good books?
I've been reading the if you've seen the Master and Commander movies, I've started reading that. There's like 50 books. Movie, yeah. There's 50 really? Books. So I've like it's actually pretty good to start. If you can
just hold on 1 second, I gotta turn the heater on in this room. Hold on, and we have to get up and the background will flick off. So let me turn the camera off 1 sec. You keep talking about Master and Commander.
Okay, Master and Commander. This is really late night sock. Flop. But if you can deal with ropes and how ships are fucking put together, then you'll enjoy it. But it is good fun. That is, Master and Commander is another goated movie, which really should have had, Jack Aubrey really should have had 1 million movies made. That's back
to the Odyssey though. That is one of the reasons why I was so impressed with the boat in the Odyssey, because Master and Commander is the last movie that was made at the Baja, Mexico movie film, like the Ocean Studio.
Yeah, right.
So they built it in like the 50s, or it was I think they built it as a famous ocean movie, and like they filmed Love Boat there as well. But like they built basically this pool in Baja, Mexico. And it was like a movie studio, so they could film movies set at sea in this like controlled environment, so they could like get 360 around ships, and like they could like eventually, like years later, they'd be able to control waves and stuff. And because filming water is so hard,
Oh yeah, they've got.
So that
it says Titanic was filmed there.
Titanic was filmed there. Yeah. Anyway, basically, over the decades, it just got so polluted and gross that they eventually had to shut it down. Like Waterworld was filmed there, and when it shut down, there was nowhere in the world that you could film scenes on boats. And so this was one of the things that, like, when James Cameron spent like all those millions and millions of dollars to make Avatar. You know how the second Avatar movie that sucks and is basically about nothing, but it's called like The Way of Water. So the first Avatar movie is like that gay, like fucking indigenous people have magic, whatever, noble savages, etc. But in the second one, they meet a bunch of like water aliens. But when you watch the movie, you realize very quickly the whole thing is just a tech demo for James Cameron to be able to do fully CGI water. And so now they can actually do movies with fully CGI water if they want. James Cameron's perfected the technology to be able to like make water look realistic. Specifically so they don't have this problem of where do you film movies in the water anymore. And then Christopher Nolan comes along and goes, fuck that, we're just going to buy a fucking 1,000-year-old boat. And yeah, we're going to rent the 1,000-year-old boat and we're going to take it into the water and we're going to make everyone sick and maybe you'll die. Like, that's how you should film movies. Like Werner Herzog.
I mean, Master and Commander is like so good. When they like the actual fighting scenes and stuff is just unbelievably good.
Oh yeah, the whole movie is spectacular.
And like it is crazy how like the movie ends with like, all right, the French are off to fucking Indonesia, let's chase them. And we get nothing.
Yeah. Why didn't we get 20 more Master and Commander movies? Like there's a world out there where Russell Crowe isn't even fat. Like where Russell Crowe is he's just like ripped. Like Russell Crowe looks like Hugh Jackman from just filming a Master and Commander movie every 2 years. And like there's an entire economy in like Pacific nations based on the fact that every 2 years they're going to have to film a new Master and Commander movie. They would have just built the boat like eventually.
with the money. The first book is just them hunting ships in the Mediterranean. It's pretty fun. Like, and Jack Aubrey is just a bit of a pisshead who loves getting his dick sucked. So
it's amazing, right? That's what we need in movies.
Exactly.
One of my favorite all-time books is they're making a TV show out of it at the moment, which is I'm really worried about. It's a Neuromancer by William Gibson. It came out like the very early, late 1970s, early 1980s. The trilogy came out in that time. It's actually the book from which the term cyberspace comes from. And like the entire cyberpunk aesthetic kind of has its origin in Neuromancer. And they've been trying to make a movie out of it for like 30 years and failing. And now Apple TV has finally greenlit and produced a TV series about it. Look, they've done the usual thing. They've done some race swaps in it, but like if they can nail it, I won't care. Like it is just one of the coolest things ever. It's definitely one of my favorite books. Gibson's definitely one of my favorite writers. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with him. Bully Bullpit says they got to make a Blood Meridian movie someday, but can they? I mean, I just think that one's absolutely unfilmable. Right? I just don't think they can do it. Right? McCarthy, some of his stuff kind of lends itself well to a screenplay, but I just don't think Blood Meridian does. Yeah, I think we'll be waiting a while for that. What else we got in the chat? The chat kind of calmed down. We got Jordan Abuzid in. I actually got to call him tomorrow about something. Jordan, I haven't forgotten about you, buddy. I've just been really busy at work, and I will give you a call first thing in the morning.
Well, it was funny. John Ruddick raised Jordan's idea of a constitutional convention.
I think it's a good idea.
Which, so we need to remake. I think it's a fantastic idea.
Yeah.
But the concern is it'll just be Gina, Pauline, and Tony Abbott in a room.
The Gina thing is, and now that it's like sock up late, and probably like I was given some leaks earlier. I was told that we had some bad actors in the chat who were watching us. Not that they can't just fucking listen to the recording tomorrow, but I know the journalists are too lazy to listen out to the third hour. But
the thing is, they can feed it through AI now, so
yeah. Well, no, I think they still struggle with video. But I am super worried about the Gina thing with those guys. I just don't think Gina is saleable. Like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I'm worried that every time Gina pops up, they're just losing boats. And also, like, everything we know about the Australian economy right now is that Gina is just increasingly irrelevant. And, you know, if like Australian resources export markets are going to increasingly become a marginal interest for legislators who need to build out AI data centers. They're going to be sitting there going, why do we send all this stuff to China just to buy it back? Right? It doesn't make it's going to stop making sense at some point, you know. In a world where, like, we're going to be of such strategic importance to the Americans that we may even be able to achieve superconductor manufacturing for ourselves, in a world where, post-superconductors, Australia is on the absolute cutting edge of the two technologies that are going to supersede them, right? I mean, Cortical Labs in Melbourne, whose largest shareholder is now the CIA, because they are that far ahead on biochips. And then the Australian government's like multi-billion-dollar investment in quantum technology in Brisbane and Sydney. I mean, the first ever tested and confirmed quantum storage occurred in New South Wales, which don't read too much about the kind of esoteric consequences of that for various time travel issues. Like, if the AI singularity is real, it literally happened in Chippendale. That's terrifying to consider. You know, this is Australia could potentially in the next 20 years be the next Taiwan. And instead we're sitting there deciding how many bum wipers to bring in and, you know, letting Star Wars people burn down tobacconists and banning people off the internet.
The politicians are much more invested in just bringing warm bodies into the country.
Yeah. You know, I'll try and find it. I might clip it and repost it at some point, but there's a fascinating exchange on my actual Twitter feed between me and the actual general manager at Cortical Labs, who I was posting something about various like frontier technologies that are being developed in Australia, and he actually jumped into the thread because I'd said, "Oh, these guys got $750,000 in federal government funding, and that's it." And now the US government has come in and given them $11 million because the technology is so exciting. And he actually responded to me and said, "Where'd you get that $750,000 figure from?" And I showed him like the link from Treasury, and he said, "No, we got 250 grand. That's it." And it's like the most exciting technology in the world that will basically get like data centers that are currently requiring, you know, 500 megawatt hours. It could potentially get them down to mere watts. And the Australian government gave them like less than the wage of a ministerial staffer to develop.
I mean, they've given more money to an autistic fucking Lebanese gangster on the NDIS, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. All right, I have some messages coming through, guys. I'm gonna bail. We're gonna bail. We're gonna put a pin in it. As always, it has been fun, and I'm so glad we got back after a small hiatus. Sock Puppets. Oh, Rowan is now saying, "Oh, are you guys still going?" Well, yeah, dude. I had 2 weeks off. I wanted to deliver value for the money that none of you pay for the live stream that only I pay for. So yeah, I kept going until 10:30. But thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week on Tuesday to talk more about the latest developments in Australian right-wing politics. Thank you for those who stayed up. Remember, you can rewatch Stream of Consciousness on YouTube, and you can follow us all on X until we are eventually banned. So stay conscious, everyone.
No.
Oh, and I got an edit to play us out.